is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
One return by Caleb Downs, and he finds the seam. He makes the punter look silly. Caleb Downs, show him what you got. Touchdown, Bama.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 10. Here's Howard stepping up in the pocket. Now flush to the right. Back of the end zone. Caught for a touchdown. Ben Sinnott, the fullback.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Rourke feels the heat, floats it, jump ball, reeled in for a touchdown. Will Kazmarek with a sensational high point touchdown grab.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
They flip it on end around to Bolden. Bolden gets to the edge. Touchdown, Oregon State.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Cam Ward, 127 yards passing so far tonight. Climbs the pocket, now looks to run. Ward for the end zone, he's in. Touchdown, Washington State, 11 yards, and Cam Ward is second rushing score.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Tuesday. Headed towards we're past the halfway mark of January, headed towards February, the month of the Super Bowl. And, of course, so much more every day still happening in college football. David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak here with you. From the television screen, Craig to the left, I'm in the middle, Paul to the right. Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie here today to run the mothership at Emory Winter, always involved in looking, watching, and feeding what we have every night at 10:30 on the local CW with 365 Sports Tonight. What a weird run it's been for Arizona. About to be a part of the Big 12. They had the drama of whether or not the Pac-12 would hold together. They just recently had their football coach moved to Washington because of the domino effect of Nick Saban. They then get their coach, and now it's the AD. Dave Hickey is out, the AD at Arizona. This was yesterday evening. Financial and operational mismanagement resulting in an athletic department financial disaster, mishandling, loss of major donors, the Jetfish contract, and more. And so Dave Hickey is out. This is Jason Scheer, our good friend that covers Arizona. His tweet from last night, they have to reach out to Baylor's Mac Rhodes. He's born and raised in Tucson, went to Arizona. I have not had any comment to Mac. I sent a note out just that, hey, Arizona's AD is out. But bottom line is Arizona's athletic department seems to constantly have something going on in turmoil.
Yeah, and to answer Jason Scheer's tweet, here's how I will break it down if you want, kind of the – yes, it's certainly Max to turn down because, if you're looking for an Arizona AD who has deep roots in the area and family and all those things that would come there and be a good person to fix it, then Mac is certainly the top candidate. And here, look, Mac also, it does really well when there's a crisis, right? So he came here to Baylor when it was, honestly, even past football, there'd be a lot of athletic directors. If you took football out of the equation, you might have looked at it and been like, man, there's a lot of things going on here where it's just kind of a mess under the surface that had kind of gotten disorganized. But he came in and streamline things and organize things. Now, look, not everything's gone perfect, and he would tell you that. They always have new challenges, but things have taken a step forward at Baylor since he's been here, which is why he is a name that comes up for a lot of these athletic director jobs. They're $240 million in debt. I would call that a crisis. I think that constitutes as one. He's very good about figuring out where those money pits are and closing those holes. But if they are in debt, now one of the things that Mac does have going for him is he's one of the highest paid athletic directors in the country. So theoretically, he might be taking a pay cut to go home unless they matched or improved his salary. But if they're in a financial crisis, that would probably be a bit of a tough sell, I would think, to the money people in Arizona.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's not ever going to be a situation where that was going to be good timing, but I think it is worse timing when you are also moving conferences and you've also lost your head football coach. So it's a triple, quadruple whammy that Arizona is facing right now. And if you just rewound a few weeks ago, then they would have seemed, even with some issues behind the scenes like these that we're talking about, it just wasn't as much on the forefront at the time, but they were one of the better stories in college football, and a program that we were talking about, was getting ready to just fly on into the Big 12 and be one of the favorites pretty much right out of the gate, one of the contenders before somebody gets butthurt about the favorite term. But you know what I mean, somebody who's going to be amongst that top group of teams contending for the Big 12 next year. But yeah, they clearly had some issues going on behind the scenes. That goes without saying, but $240 million miscalculation. I mean, how does that even happen? I've never dealt with money like that to know how you could even have that occur. But they somehow managed to have $250 million miscalculated within their budget. They talked about having major cuts or draconian cuts. And, we're seeing some of, I guess, the start of that or parts of that. And, heads needed to roll when you have that bad of a situation arise. And then you throw the Jed Fish move on top of that. And the fact that money came into play, or that you look at Arizona and think that they could have thrown more money out there and then realize their situation, and no, not really. So, it's a mess. It sounds like in Tucson right now. Luckily, they've got Brent Brennan in there who can get to work. They've got Tetaroa McMillan and also Noah Fafita that can, be the faces of that program moving forward. But as far as the financial part of this and now going and finding an athletic director, I mean, that's a whole can of worms that I don't even know where you begin with that and how you solve that if you're Arizona, and especially in a situation where you're not jumping into a conference where now suddenly you're making an extra $60 million a year and you can chip into that real quick. I mean, you're making a little bit extra money, but not by much. I mean, not enough to knock out $240 million in a couple of years, and you wouldn't be that even if you joined the other big conferences. That's how deep of a hole that is. So, yeah, I don't know what effects this has on the sports programs, other than obviously every aspect of that university will probably be touched to some extent. But, it's just it's an ugly situation that they're dealing with, and let's see how they climb out of it. Mack Rhoades, as y'all pointed out, is a guy who's great in situations like these, although the situation at Baylor was much different than being a big financial issue. Mm-hmm. And as much as you might be a great fundraiser or things like that, I mean, this isn't fundraising for a new basketball arena. This is this is being out $240 million. So I don't know if that appeals to him in the same way. Hey, we'd like you to come in and raise money for scholarships or for a new football stadium. That's a different ask, right? That's a much different ask as opposed to, hey, we need you to help us climb out of this hole. So, yeah, it makes sense to contact him. I don't know what his interest level would be, but, good luck to Arizona in trying to get out of this mess, but it is a mess.
The CFO, the chief financial officer who was overseeing all of this, resigned, so to speak. It's been about a month, but it wasn't even a resignation. It was President Robbins looking around, making sure everyone's trying to do their due diligence, looking at where everything failed or not. And then all of a sudden, probably kept her around for a while because this has been out there for a while. And then once a lot of the numbers and information became available, she eventually is no longer a part of it, but probably was able to help understand or get to where some of these financial deficits occurred. So it took a while, but here we are. And now Hickey is out, and the AD search in Arizona continues. So if you're Brennan, I don't think you're like, oh, my God. But anytime the AD leaves, it's like the superintendent at a high school. They don't hire a lot of the coaches, but they're very much involved in that search, and usually there's a connection. Same thing in college when the AD's gone.
Anytime you get a new boss in any industry,
sure.
You better be on your P's and Q's, because if they don't trust you or like you, or they're not going to go down with the ship. So I hope that Robert Robbins really likes the Brent Brennan hire, because that's really, who's got to be his advocate right now. And look, the new AD is not going to come in and be like, I don't like this. It's going to give him some time. But yeah, to hire a football coach last week and get fired this week is not usually the double play you see turned, by college athletic departments. Usually, look, they're going to fire the AD before they hire the football coach, because they don't want a guy who they think they're going to fire to be tied to somebody who he hired and then he's gone. So that is really interesting. But I guess again, the wheel doesn't have a definite spinning pattern when it comes to these things, especially when you're talking about budget shortfalls and finger pointing and who's to blame for it. But also look, and I don't know Robert Robbins and all that, but if I were him, I'd be a little bit worried myself, because, it's not like you've got some oversight in this too, don't you? I mean, it's a $240 million miscalculation. Like, I've had miscalculations on my bills before where I've budgeted for a month and then my power bill was way more than I thought. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm not doing this now. But it wasn't $240 million. It was just like 110.
He was one of the ones that seemed very balanced when it came to what's going to happen in the future of those programs that eventually are now a part of the Big 12. So he had a few distractions along the way. But there we are with that. And Arizona with Dave Hickey. He is out as the AD at Arizona. Meanwhile, this was yesterday that what we mentioned yesterday with what happened with A.D. Bjork headed to Ohio State, now there, and at R.C. Slocum is now the interim A.D. That's another athletic director position where that search is going on with the great R.C. Slocum, at least for now, calming the waters somewhat. Cincinnati expected to hire Iowa State linebackers coach and assistant head coach Tyson Veit as the new defensive coordinator. Iowa State, of course, top 25 nationally in scoring defense the last 4 years. So he now is the defensive coordinator, goes from what part of the conference, Iowa State, to what now is Cincinnati. And the Cincinnati has a new coach to help with what they're doing their second year in the Big 12.
Yeah, Cincinnati, they got the Indiana transfer at quarterback. They were not good on defense last year, so that was something that needed to change. So we'll see Scott Satterfield in year two. He had pretty much a top-down roster rebuild to do after Luke Fickell left. So things are like that now. But it'll be interesting to see how and pulling from Iowa State's defensive staff is probably a pretty good idea when it comes to guys who can figure out how to stop people in the Big 12.
Yeah, Cincinnati's had a lot of turnover to deal with, and this is a part of that just churn of, the offseason. And so to go and grab a guy from Iowa State like they have is, I think a nice pull, somebody familiar with the league, somebody that's proven to develop players, somebody that's had some, great showings and numbers and has proven that they can, play some defense in this league. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. It should be a nice transition or a simple transition for Tyson Veit. And, Iowa State's a program that the rest of the league went and basically copycatted to figure out how to stop those high-octane offenses. And we saw almost everybody in the league, in some form or fashion, kind of go along with what Matt Campbell and company had done to start defending a lot of these spread offenses. And so they're a program that when you think of good defense, you look towards the Cyclones and over these last few years. And so I think Cincinnati making a move to add a little Iowa State flavor to their defense after some struggles last year and needing to make a change, I think is a smart move. So, yeah, I think that one's, a good move for the Bearcats.
So Texas, remember, hired assistant coach from Arizona to join their staff, just like what they've been able to do, benefiting from Steve Sarkisian and his connection, along with others, to Alabama, where they've been able to fill what they need. And in some cases, almost like, okay, this guy's gone, here's the next. We've seen what they've done with their roster. They added Tio Wali'i Savea, defensive lineman from Arizona. He is now the latest pickup for UT football when it comes to the transfer portal. And in my opinion, no matter what, you could never have enough defensive linemen, and of course that's what the SEC is known for.
You also can never have enough defensive linemen when two of the best players on your team were those defensive linemen.
Absolutely.
And,
no matter who's back.
Part of the reason that you were in the college football playoff, a major part of the reason is that T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy just ate up so much space there and were so elite all year long. Both of them are off to the NFL draft. And as I follow along, climbing up draft boards as people kind of realize, like, oh, man, these guys are, when you shut down people in the running game like they did pretty much all year long, and it's because of those two dudes, like they're going up the list. So, yeah, you got to replace them. And you can't just – there's not, a nice farm full of T'Vondre, like little puppy T'Vondre Sweats running around that you go, I'll take this T'Vondre Sweat and bring him on. And, oh, do you have a Byron Murphy? We'll have one of those too. It's hard to do, but they've got a capable replacement here, and we'll see how he fits into that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to see how quickly they moved to fill a lot of the holes due to the NFL departures, and this certainly seems like a good pickup. Guess how many schools he's been
3.
on? Yep.
This is his 3rd school.
This is almost like this is going to be the new norm, is being at 3 schools. Not even being at 2, but being at 3 schools. The number of guys that I see now where it's like he originally started at so-and-so, and then he's transferring from this place, and so I just feel like I've seen that more than I've seen guys transferring just to their 2nd school here of late. Maybe it's just the string and it's totally coincidental, but man, that seems like a common theme this year is being on your 3rd school. So 3rd school, had a really productive year at Arizona and was a very highly heralded player coming out of high school. And so I think, it's a nice pickup for Texas on paper. Certainly there's a huge need for them there. And with the familiarity and what you're bringing over already from that Arizona staff, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense, that connection already being in place and that familiarity. So, yeah, that seems like it should be a seamless transition. Now, can he come in and produce the way that those guys that y'all mentioned produced? I don't know. We'll see. But there's still some talent back there. Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton. They needed a lot, to address the depth as much as anything, and also add some power. And so I think they've done both with this pickup here, and the fact that you have that familiar with the coaching staff just, I think, puts a cherry on top of it. So, yeah, that seems to be a really good move for Texas, who's on a roll right now.
Teowali Savea, that's his name, Arizona defensive lineman, now will play for Steve Sarkisian and also the UT Longhorns. LSU's doing something. You're seeing a trend here. Now, sometimes when you see this, it's also to help a player or coach who's a position coach get a separate title, a co-something coordinator, because he can get more money out of this. LSU is going to promote quarterbacks coach Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton to the co-offensive coordinator position. Sloan is the primary offensive play caller. Those two as interims leading up to the bowl game, the win against Wisconsin, nearly 500 yards of offense over Wisconsin, 35-31. And is that without Jaden Daniels at the quarterback position, and still put up huge numbers. So they're going to go with the co-coordinators, both of them that way, probably get a nice little bump from what they were making already.
All right, Garrett, grade the hire.
I mean, I don't want to put a grade on it because I'm uncertain of the situation. Looking at it from afar, it feels like if you don't have, it's like a quarterback situation, right? If you have 2, you don't have 1. That's kind of how I see this. I need to see it unfold first. I know you have a lot of chemistry there, especially with the relationship he's built up with the quarterbacks. But, I mean, I'm on the fence with it right now. I just got to see how it turns out.
All right, Garrett, thank you very much for that. Also, UGA, 10, Georgia, passed away.
Oh.
Most successful run of any of the mascots in Georgia football history. This is the one that had the standoff, am I right, with Bevo. And you wonder if maybe that may have took some months off his life.
Well, I think you got an old dog like that. They're not messing around with anything. So
it's also like 4 years ago. So yeah, maybe it did, but it took a while to add up, I guess.
But English Bulldogs living to 10 is that's a good long run for that breed of dog. They classically have a lot of problems, especially with their hips. So yeah, I'm sorry for the dog. It just stinks.
The mascots.
Best of luck to the new UGA.
Absolutely. There's always some that are ready to take over, and they do have, of course, the replacement in hand. I have a question. How much money TMZ makes millions, hundreds of, I'm sure, like dozens and dozens. How much money, not on something like this, but do they get for when they find videos that nobody knows about Tyreek Hill or whoever else that are just amazing. How much do you think they spend when it comes to that?
They spend a ton because they get it back in views. Like, look, here's this guy drunkenly coming out of a club doing all this stupid stuff. We got it. They pay.
People love to see train wrecks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they just have this stupid show where they sit around and like dog on people. And, sometimes people deserve it and sometimes they don't. Like, everything's not gold. Sometimes it's just David Spade walking out of the airport. But, they spend so much. That's a very sad cash cow, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're probably overrating a little bit as far as I think the T stands for train wreck, basically. Yeah. I don't think it's millions of dollars. I think you need to have it need to be like Taylor Swift doing something. Yeah. I think it's actually like.
I'm just talking about total outlay. Like
I'm talking about what he's talking about.
Yeah, how much do they pay to get the video?
Yeah, that's that question. I'm saying I don't think that you're getting millions for every little scandal that pops up. I think in some cases you're in the hundreds of thousands for sure, and maybe even less than that in some cases. But yeah, I have no idea. I've never watched more than a couple seconds of that show. I very rarely go to the website unless there's just something that's so huge, and certainly this doesn't really apply in my case. So no. I don't know what that would typically go for, but there's big business there, that's for sure.
By the way, 91-18 record as the mascot at Georgia, 2 national championship victories and 2 SEC titles and 6 New Year's 6 bowl games during his career. Now, basketball. Tonight, there's a handful of games, including a couple of top 10 teams in the Big 12. We'll get the last night in just a second. West Virginia on the road in Orlando against UCF. There's the Texas-Oklahoma game on ESPN, tip at 6, and then 2 games at 8. 4th-ranked Houston, 21st-ranked BYU up in Provo. And then TCU, Oklahoma State struggling. TCU will be in Waco on Saturday, a team that's really good, just slipped outside the top 25, and you're going to see a little bit of that with the Big 12, with everybody beating everybody up.
Yeah, Mike Boynton needs to get it going. Otherwise, they're going to have to make a change because it's not going to be a couple years with them not going to the tournament if they keep on this path, which really stinks because I like him and I think he's a good coach, but I guess it's not really a match there right now, and TCU is very good.
Very athletic. Jamie Dixon, of course, the head coach there, and they'll play on Saturday up at the Foster Pavilion. Now, a couple of other games tonight. We try to include the Big 12, but also the better national games, including tonight. Number 6, Kentucky. Calipari's got himself a team at South Carolina, and then Michigan. Juwan Howard and company at Purdue against the Boilermakers, number 2 in the country. That will be streamed on the Peacock. Last night, Kansas bouncing back from the loss to West Virginia. It got dicey down the stretch, but they had a big enough lead. Cincinnati hit 8 of their last 9 shots. Cincinnati's good, but they lose by 5 at Allen Fieldhouse. And North Carolina was down a little bit early and then just blew the doors off Wake Forest by 85-64.
That's a shame.
What?
Cincinnati. It's just a shame. We're going
to start wearing red, white, and blue in here with your Jayhawk logo here.
I might have to just because
at this point.
These are basically Kansas colors.
You're throwing Kansas shade now.
Hey, look, I'll tell you this. What state did Superman land in? Huh?
Yeah,
he landed in Kansas, all right? No, it just makes my life much easier. Look, I have to tell this story. She'll get mad.
It cuts down on content on our show.
She'll get mad, though. She was so mad about the West Virginia game, didn't even care what the final score was last night, was content to go to bed and not know it. And I was like, I'm checking it the whole time. I'm like, all right.
Don't tell me she did not know the score.
No, I'm honest. She was so mad about West Virginia. And then I was like, hey, they're winning. It's Cincinnati's tough.
They won the game.
They lose a game, and it's like, I'm not watching now. That's being upset. That's for sure. I mean, that's a good win. Cincinnati, that's a team that's certainly having some headaches in terms of finishing games. They've had some close losses, but their losses are piling up now in the Big 12, and so you need to turn some of those into wins. It's one thing to have admirable efforts and to play close and be respectable and those types of things, but it doesn't matter if they still result in loss after loss after loss. So, yeah, that was a tough one. Another game that you felt like you had a chance to possibly win, and doesn't go your way. But Kansas is a really good team that doesn't lose very often, and much less lose in bulk. So they're not surprised to see that end result. But I know that Cincinnati folks are getting frustrated, or at least some that I follow along with, because it's just been close disappointment after close disappointment after close disappointment in the Big 12 now. So, that's just part of the deal, part of the grind, and you just hope that you can stay afloat. There's a lot of games left to play, but then again, this thing's going to be, done and over with in just a matter of weeks. So it's a fast-paced race, and yet you still got a little bit of time, but, there's a lot of losses building up.
All right, well, yesterday, the story about Steve Linton, who committed to come to play for Baylor. Couple of notes about him. He's a talented young man. If you look at him, and he just hammered Baylor in the game in Lubbock this past week. If you look at him, his quick
season.
What did I say? Past season.
Yeah.
He's got the quick twitch. He has the size, the explosiveness, but then there are times where if you do your due diligence on the young man, his clock is ticking. He basically, I think, had to leave Tech. I think there was not because of anything legal, whatever. It was just time for him to move on, and he's got to just be locked in. And can get Dave Aranda, Matthew Pallage, among others, can they get him locked in where he is 100% focused on football? Doesn't mean he can't have a part of another life, and that seems to be what has been his MO. He, of course, is another guy that had been to a couple of schools before he arrived at Baylor. But if you look at him, combine, if you look at his body and what he can do, he can wreak havoc. But does he do it with a motor that is there week in and week, not even week in and week out, but practice in and practice out? That remains to be seen with him.
Yeah, another third school guy, 4 years at Syracuse and then 1 year at Tech and now heading to Baylor. So, again, that trend just appears consistently more and more. But, I know what you were told and what kind of the, talk was behind the scenes, and sounds like a guy who's got a great opportunity in Waco, but it's one that he's got to take advantage of. And this is, your last opportunity now. You're not getting this most I don't understand every part of his situation, and who knows with the NCAA these days, but stands to reason you're not getting a seventh year. So you need to take full advantage of this sixth and final year and your third stop, and apparently get some things in order, and you better have your game face on, or else it's just going to be a wasted scholarship for Baylor, or one that they don't get to maximize the way they probably could if they had gone another direction, and it's just going to be a wasted opportunity for him. So I think they're both parties that are in need of each other to be there support-wise, but also to show up and maximize each other to the best of their abilities. And so hopefully they're able to do that. I know that they definitely feel like he left some meat on the bone there in Lubbock, and so we'll see if Dave Aranda and crew can't get something a little bit more out of him. But, yeah, I saw, all of the reaction. It's like, screw you, Tech, take that. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know that Tech didn't kind of put, I don't know that it's just the dunk on Tech that you think it is. Just because you got him from there. And that works in both ways. Like A.J. McCarty, I saw a lot of that. We got A.J. McCarty. I'm sitting there going, I don't think Tech fans realize it's not as big of a deal as you think. So it's gone both ways now. But, yeah, I'm in wait-and-see mode on Linton, and I think he's got great athletic ability and promise. But at the same time, I know that there's a little something that's missing there. So hopefully they can get that out of him.
All right, when we come back a little bit later in the hour, in fact, about 8 to 10 minutes away, Alexis Cubitt covers Louisville. They've had a great run, as Paul had at his top 5 yesterday when it comes to the transfer portal. Later in the show, we have Craig's Off the Radar, Paul's top 5, Baylor tight ends coach Jared Anderson, John McClain on the NFL playoffs, and there's much more to get to. Not done with all of that, and this is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. My dentist, proud to say it, is Dr. Steve Childress, and what he's helped me do. I have a retainer now that when I go to sleep, I wear a retainer because I'm one of those that, what do they call it? I'm a grinder when it comes to at night when you're sleeping or not. I just grind my teeth. That's also something I've battled for a long, long time. And of course, the sugar fix that was not smart, that led to a lot of cavities. And then cavities led to root canals. And then root canals led to even teeth being pulled or even some crowns. And, oh, by the way, It's expensive if you're not careful. And so Dr. Steve Childress can help you find what you need as far as a game plan, no different than the 4 teams playing on Sunday to get to the Super Bowl. What is the game plan? Here's the evidence. This is what you have available, and this is what he can do. And then put it together. It's not something that happens overnight. Slowly and methodically. And I guarantee you, some of you watching or listening have had that issue too. Some of you have been smarter than I was for so many years. Dr. Steve Childress and Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Drive into the new year with confidence and excitement during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get incredible deals on our entire selection of new Ram trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Chrysler sedans, or a sporty Dodge. Get more for less guaranteed. More value, more selection, more service, more trade-in allowance, and even more competitive financing. Hurry in and start 2024 with a bang. Shop the greatest selection of inventory in Central Texas at Allen Samuels in Waco. In-store or online at allensamuelsdcj.com and make it unforgettable.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
So I've made this, I've used this term quite a bit when it comes to, like, for example, the Big 12 in basketball, the SEC for the longest time in football, and some still believe it's the case, and maybe it is and might even be about to be even more difficult. What would be a term? Garrett, Craig, Paul, also the chat room, 254-339-1122. I'll go to the text line and check. How would you describe the Big 12 in men's basketball? What would be like a one-word or maybe one or two-word term to describe what I've used and said is a sledgehammer?
I would say wood chipper. I mean, it's just so tough every single night, and wherever you are, you know, when you know, you can go to West Virginia and be one of the better teams in the conference, and they're on the struggle bus, and then they beat you and handily. When you can, you know, be on a roll, you know, and run up against a team who just blew a 6 18-point lead at home and then lose on the road like Baylor did against Texas because you just caught them at the wrong time where they're not making shots and then they make every shot. Like all those things, you can feel like you're in a hot streak, but your hot streak is only kind of depends on where and who you're playing the next night. And it's just there are no easy outs. Like I know that Oklahoma State might be an outlier in this season, but really, I mean, there are no easy outs in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all going to have terms that are pretty much centered around the same thing, just kind of saying different things or saying the same thing with different words. But I'd say a grind. I mean, it's what it is. I think you can say that, though, about other conferences. I don't want to start being an SEC football fan and acting like nobody else plays on a level that's close to the Big 12. I agree. Because I do think there's a lot of other good teams out there. So I don't want to do that, but I do think just in general as a league, forgetting everybody else, yeah, it's a grind. And I think of it as being, kind of an Ironman match as well, which I just saw a wrestling story I'll have for just a little snippet for Off the Radar with TV-wise. But think about like an Ironman match, which is like you go an hour, let's say, and you get as many pinfalls between two guys, and the winner is whoever had the most, right? And that's eventually who's got the best record. But it's like who can last, who can go the full stretch and be the best from start to finish. Not just good for the first month and not just good late, but like who can – I think you have to be good throughout. You have to be steady throughout, and it's really hard to do that because of injuries or just the schedule, the way it lays out. And so, yeah, it's like an Ironman competition of like who can still be who can still be standing strong there at the end with the most wins in their palm. And, that's a lot of times been Kansas, but there's been plenty of others that have jumped up and made noise as well. So, yeah, it's a grind. It's an Ironman competition in some ways, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's for sure.
Monster, beastly, best, hyper, competitive, slaughterhouse, deep, grinder, dominant. Those are some of the words. I didn't get to all of them. I do know that if you get off to like a 1-4, 2-5 start, it's not over because everybody is good, and even including if that's you. But, man, it does seem like if you burp, you blink, you close your eyes, whatever, which is blinking, you could go from 3-1 to 4-6, or you could also turn it around because you're going to play some pretty good teams that are always pretty much above you if you start off poorly.
Well, the best news about like maybe going on a rough run where you might be on the outside looking in at the tournament at the midpoint is sometimes that can happen to a team. They can have a bad run, and they've played the good teams in their conference early in the schedule. With the Big 12, if you go on a good run late, like you're just getting good quality wins along the way. So, just as fast as it can turn around bad, it can turn around good. So that's the thing about being in the conference. You get hot, and you can pretty much take on anybody. And they're just – and I think the difference between them and maybe everybody – like the other conferences right now is just there aren't – like when it comes to playing on the road, there's just not as many places in this league compared to the others that you can go and it not be just a slog. So that's, I think, the biggest difference is where you're on the road in the Big 12, like it doesn't matter who it is. Like you are almost the underdog, even if you're not, because it's just how it is. So, they have more of those than everybody else right now.
UCF and West Virginia are two examples.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
There.
Like, UCF, like nobody thought that they were going to, they thought, early on for Johnny Dawkins going to be tough. Like, I mean, yeah, tough, but not that tough. Like he's handled it well. I mean, he's got wins over Kansas and Texas. So I think if you had told UCF basketball fans, like, listen, the first year is going to be, they'll be like throwing rocks at you, but the two rocks that are going to hit you are Kansas and Texas. You're like, seriously, we're going to beat them? They'd be like, great, that's on the up for the program.
Yeah, it is. We're going to have Alexis here in just a second on Louisville football and also a lot more. Thanks for those of you who are in the chat room. If you are, please, if you have not hit the like button, please click the like button. If you have not subscribed, we would appreciate you doing that. I think did we not, Garrett, get right to 38,000?
It's just over 38,000.
Just over 38,000. And it's crazy because it's been less than 4 years since our first day we signed off with this show. And on top of that, If you have something that you want to share, one of our segments, you can go to our reel on the YouTube page and share one of our segments with somebody about a team, a player, or whatever that they may like. And sometimes, of course, a lot of times we dip outside of the Big 12 and cover college football in general. So we appreciate you for doing that. And also, thanks to our sponsors, you see, of course, in the background, Ideal MRI, Petty Clinic, Low T, GXG, Texas, your TFNB, your bank for life, among many others. All right, we're now joined by Alexis Cubitt, Paul Catalina, David Smoak, Craig Smoak, Louisville. Alexis having a pretty nice run so far with what they're doing, Jeff Brom, and also now year 2 of recruiting in the transfer portal.
Yeah, no, definitely, Smokey. It's been interesting because it's like one of the players we talked to earlier said, they're kind of a portal team now where it's just you get these big groups of transfers now that obviously last year helped them out quite a bit, and this year it looks like it's the same thing because they picked up quite a few good pieces in the portal, and obviously they know what they have coming up as far as scheduling goes. So, yeah, it seems like every day there's at least one or two that they're coming.
Alexis, their strategy has been like carpet bombing it. Like there's not a specific place there. It's not like they're getting Jeff Brom's old players from Purdue necessarily or that. I mean, they've gone to Tennessee like 3 or 4 times to get guys. But what is his general pitch about this team where he's gotten, and it's not just volume. I mean, anybody can go get volume if you're just going to go and go, okay, I need these positions. It's the quality guys he's getting that he's winning these battles against other teams for.
Yeah, I think that he's selling the win now kind of mentality, and after the year that they had last year, it is obviously a lot more appealing and kind of is like a see, I told you kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that they have a good amount of like NIL incentives. I know the collectives are very active. They also have where they've shown that they can reach the ACC championship, and then also you look back at what he did at Purdue, and you can kind of point to that for them to get the Big Ten championship 2 years ago now. So, I mean, yeah, he's got a pretty solid pitch, and just the guy that he's put in the NFL, and you had one of his former players come back and during an interview say that, being at Purdue under Jeff Brom helped me get to this point. So there are a lot of things that he can point to tell players, here's why you should come here, and obviously they're listening.
Alexis, were you surprised, and I know it's been a little while now, but how quickly they moved to go and get Tyler Shuck when there's still remnants out there in the transfer portal? What was it from what you've been able to gather that was so appealing to Brom and company about Tyler Shuck in particular at quarterback?
Yeah, well, the kind of not rumor mill, but like the kind of talk that was out there was it was Shuck and it was DJ Uiagalelei, which like, okay, he's following me at this point. No.
Yeah.
But it was, those are two guys that kind of really fit what Brom is looking for. I mean, obviously you guys have seen Tyler closer than I have in recent years, just with, the kind of player that he is when he's healthy. So I think just his stature, his physical skill set really fit into the Brom prototype of a quarterback. And I think that, this year he's had a little more time to evaluate versus last year where it was just kind of one of those things where it's, let's get some guys in quick. Obviously, Jack was a safe option because he had experience with Jeff and with Brian Brom, the quarterback's coach and Jeff's brother. But this year they had some time to, you never know who's going to go in the portal, but I'm sure you keep a list of guys and kind of keep in the back of your mind, like, okay, if this one goes in, let's go after him. And it just kind of seems like Tyler had that vibe. Obviously, he's a former high school teammate of Jawar Jordan, who was running back here at Louisville, now going to the draft. So I just think all those things really kind of help to get Tyler, and they had their eyes set on him. And also he played against Jack. Him and Jack were quarterbacks in Arizona together. So all of those things kind of made for the perfect storm, and I think he'll be a really good addition if he can stay healthy.
What is the biggest ad for them outside of that? Is it Tyler Barron or is it Penny Boone?
Oh, my gosh. So I kind of think it'll be like Thor Griffith a little bit, just because he's so highly regarded in terms of already being one of those, top NFL draft picks as far as the lineman. He won't be here till the summer, so they won't, get him in the spring. We'll have to acclimate a little quicker than some of the other ones. But I mean, the D-line is going to be good, but it's funny because I think really helps the perception of a Brom offense, because when you think about Jeff Brom's offense, you think passing. But for Jawar to have the game engine, I think that kind of helps to sell and get someone like Penny, because of just how dominant he was. One of the statistical leaders in the country last year. So, no, Penny's going to be huge, and I think he'll help them to have an even more of a balanced offense than it was last year.
Alexis Cubitt, again, Courier Journal Sports. If Louisville somehow is shrapnel, if the ACC eventually does blow up and they end up in the Big 12, will you promise to come cover a game in Waco?
I will absolutely have to cover a game in Waco, and I will be at George's and every other place that I possibly can.
So where is Louisville? I think I asked you this maybe 6 or 8 months ago when all hell was breaking loose with conference realignment, whatever. And, of course, the ACC ended up adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU. Where is the Louisville, not administration, Jeff Brom, but the fan base when it comes to the ACC and where it is right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't really know that – I don't know. It's kind of hard to gauge right now just because – when you think about just the ACC, I don't really know that Louisville has much options outside of it, and it's it's just a weird situation where Louisville is not really that signature school right now in terms of they could just kind of write their check and go anywhere. But as far as the fan base is concerned, I don't know that anybody's really. I mean, I think, of course, they're thinking about it a little bit, but I think just with everything going on right now, it's just so much uncertainty that nobody really actually knows what actually is happening. So it's just, I think right now they're just so caught up in the excitement of Brom, and, I'm sure at this point they've built up enough confidence to feel like they can win wherever they go. But, yeah, Louisville's kind of that weird school where it's not where they're, big enough to pull a Florida State, but they're not, small enough to disappear. So... yeah.
So would you say that most, and I think this is probably true for a lot of ACC fans, are probably mad at FSU?
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of wondering, where that's coming from. I mean, I think it should be obvious where it's coming from, but I don't really know, where Louisville would kind of fall in that. I don't know right now if they want to play FSU, so I don't think they'd be too upset if they decided to go to a different conference, but it definitely sets a precedent that if you have enough money, you can kind of do whatever you want a little bit.
That's America, baby. Yeah, I mean, that's right. America in a nutshell, right? Alexis, I did want to get back and have one more question about the recruiting class. I guess the transfer class, I should say, was secondary the biggest priority, just based off the numbers? I mean, safety in particular, and then there's a couple corners added as well, but it just seems like that was obviously an area of focus, or has been an area of focus, I guess, with all of these portal additions, a bevy of safeties and a couple corners as well.
Yeah, no, I had thought about that right after Paul had asked me that, but no, when you look at what happened in the USC game, it was very obvious that they needed some help, So I think that there was definitely a concerted effort to pull in some guys. I mean, you got essentially 2 starters from Tennessee that are now coming, both safeties. When you lost, Cam Kelly, and then obviously Josh Minkins, who was a former starter there at safety. And then, you lose Jarvis Brownlee, but you get back Quincy Riley. So, no, I think that was a huge thing. And honestly, the 2 years that I've covered Louisville, their secondary they've had some talented guys. So obviously, Quincy and Jarvis were good, but they do give up a lot of yards to more talented receivers. So I think now with just the kind of mentality that Brom has and what he, wants to do, they needed those guys. And I think they've got a solid group of DBs that can really help because they were a little thin. Quincy played, all but maybe I think 30 snaps last season in games, in 14 games, however many it was. So, no, they definitely needed that. They got those guys, and that'll be really, really important here, especially with the schedule that they have.
With him and his success, and Jeff Brom's going to be a guy that he'll be successful there and even more so wherever he was to eventually go throughout his entire career. I love his demeanor, great player. Was the transition about as good or seamless as they could have expected?
Oh, yeah, especially probably shouldn't say this, especially when you look at what happened with basketball or what is happening with men's basketball and bringing in former players. I think some people maybe were a little hesitant or worried about, okay, well, how is another former player going to do? But, I mean, he really came into the perfect situation. Say what you want about Satterfield, but, you know, they made strides, and they had a really, really good defense that last year that he was here, which set Brom up. And just being able to retain a lot of those guys from that 22 team last year, in addition to adding portal guys, was really, really important in terms of, you know, what he was trying to do. But no, it was definitely, you know, the perfect situation. He talked about how, you know, this is the time to come back home. And yeah, apparently it was. So I think it did raise the standard, though. And now people's expectations are higher in terms of what they expect from this team. And the schedule is going to be, you know, a lot tougher with having to go to Notre Dame and having to go to Clemson. But I think it's still a winnable schedule. And I definitely foresee him kind of having that same mentality going into this year. And I mean, hey, they beat Notre Dame at home last year, so why not go try to do it on the road?
Alexis, you mentioned Kenny Payne and the basketball team, which is dead last in the ACC right now, and that is not a place that Louisville fans like to be. Do you feel like you're going to be covering a basketball coach search in the offseason?
You know, that is the beauty of my job, Paul, is that I cover a women's basketball team that is ranked 16th in the nation right now. So I don't have those problems, but more than likely, yes. Our sports staff, my coworker, and the columnist will more than likely be covering a coaching search, which is unfortunate because I don't think Louisville has gone. Let's see, last year Brom, correct? So yeah, it's been a little bit since they haven't had a coaching search, but I guess it gives Josh Hurd some good reps and. In interviewing coaches, but yeah, it probably is going to be the end of the road there.
Yeah, that's just a place. That's a blue blood in basketball with their history, Denny Crum and all that. Yep. I saw where John Calipari even gave him a little bit of a support, like you would see an AD give a coach, a manager, his support, and usually that's not a good thing. But Calipari trying to go to bat for Kenny Payne. It was good to see that. Of course, Kentucky is really, really good. Alexis, always great to hear from you. Appreciate everything. Your memories of helping us when we were doing what we did back when you were in college, and so proud of what you've done throughout your career and now covering Louisville. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. You guys gave me my start, so I'll also see you guys and love you. And anytime you need me, you know I'm jumping on for you. Absolutely, we will. Alexis Cubitt with again the Courier Journal and Courier Journal and covering Louisville. Garrett, I saw this, and we're going to close out the hour with this. The ACC continues to release parts of their schedule. Remember, yesterday they released part of their schedule. These are now weeknight games, Thursday night games, and they're sprinkled out, including now. Let's look at the top, the six at the top. Which one of the, like Syracuse, Pitt, okay. NC State, Georgia Tech, okay.
That one might be. I mean, those are two teams on the rise.
North Carolina and Minnesota, non-conference game, okay.
Yeah.
None of those seem to be out of whack. I know a couple of schools that are the smaller FCS as well. Now, go down a list. That Stanford TCU game, that's a good non-conference game, right? That's an ACC non-conference game. I had to go, wait, what's TCU on there for? Because it's Stanford.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird. I do like that SMU BYU. If BYU can get a nice uptick next year, Virginia Tech Miami used to be a really fierce rivalry. We'll see, and Virginia Tech improved this last year. Well, I think Miami's going to improve. I think Florida State Duke. All of a sudden it's a game that's going to be good, which wasn't for the whole of the rivalry. But I don't think Manny Diaz is going to drop off too much. Malik Murphy, the quarterback at Duke. Some of those aren't that. Cal and Wake Forest, I don't think that they're going to have people staying home for that one, but we'll see.
I want to know why Stanford is being educationally belligerent playing on a weeknight during school.
Well, you got to.
Of course, a lot of those schools are very highly academic rated schools. from the ACC.
Look, the Pac-12 found out that the fancy book learning it was not quite as important as they made it out to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that jumps out to me is there's a lot of weeknight games.
Yeah,
It's a hell of a lot of weeknight games, and I know that those are just part of the product now for some, but that's an awful interesting lineup with some teams that you have to remind yourself that they're even in that league. Like, I mean, SMU and BYU, that's an ACC game. Okay. I mean, I know it's just one of those teams in the ACC. That's an ACC Big 12 game, so that's just kind of strange. Same thing, Stanford, TCU, as you pointed out. I mean, Vatech Miami on a Friday just feels kind of weird. I feel like that should be a Saturday game.
That was
if it
one
was
of
a
the
Friday
best,
game during Thanksgiving, but is that when Florida?
Yeah,
okay.
But that was they'll usually play on Saturday, but like it depends. But that was one of the best rivalries in the entire Big East. It was West Virginia and Miami, and Virginia Tech and Miami were great Big East rivalries when those teams were in that league. And obviously, that West Virginia's in the Big 12 now. But yeah, Virginia Tech and Miami, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're like spotlighting that on a Friday night of like, man, look at this exclusive, you get this big rivalry type of a game. But I don't think that's what they're doing necessarily, because the rest of the grouping around it doesn't seem to fit that mold. As much as you want to hope that Duke, stays steady, that's still not a rivalry game with Florida State by any means. I mean, honestly, what my thoughts are here are there's a couple of interesting games. This is probably like an ACC fan looking at a Big 12 weeknight schedule, and I'm feeling the same way that they would, because I don't have like dyed in the wool and from the ground up interest, just like they wouldn't seeing like Iowa State versus Oklahoma State on a Thursday night, whereas I'd be like, all right, cool, Thursday night. And so that's how I feel. But I also feel like, wow, there's going to be a lot of weeknight games moving forward, because the conferences are getting pushed out if you're not in the top two. And so now there's only so much room to go around. So you're now being forced into more weeknight games. And I wonder to what extent that goes to. And then my other thought, other than the amount of weeknight games we're about to start getting served, especially from the ACC and probably the Big 12, because we saw the Big 12 making those moves a lot last year.
And I think they're going to have Friday games.
And they're running out of real estate, and I know some teams aren't happy with that, but that's part of the shuffling.
Getting money.
But what's also part of it is that's obviously a part of the money and a part of the realignment, but the other realignment part of this, to me, that stands out is just, I mean, I thought these were all supposed to be better games by adding all these teams. This seems worse. I mean, honestly, than just what the ACC was originally or what the Big 12 was originally. Like, I get it. Like, next year I'll be excited when Arizona Baylor. Otherwise, I might not care about that as a Big 12 game. But, like, I don't know. You're going to have to really get me amped up for, like, Arizona and,
I think the Big 10 and the SEC are the ones that are going to have maybe an extra 8 to 10 games that you're like, whoa.
They are. But, it's water. You could argue it's watered down the other leagues because they've had to go grab all these other teams just to stay afloat, and yet instead of making more intriguing matchups, it does in the SEC and it does in the Big 10, but for everybody else, it makes it less intriguing, I feel like, in some ways.
Yeah, look, and there's not dogging either one of these schools, but they've both, have fired coaches recently, but Syracuse and Stanford on a Friday night, are they like...
I mean, what is that going to do?
They might get a good number for a Friday night, generally for football, but like that's not going to. Nobody's going to be saying like, "Hey, did you?"
They would have bigger numbers. You might even think if it was a basketball.
They need to throw. I want to see an experiment. Forget Syracuse. I mean, they got momentum right now. I know SMU does as well, but they're still small. I want to see SMU Stanford on a Friday night and what number that pulls, because I don't think it'd be very high. Now, content's content. You hear that all the time, but I mean that's honestly one of my thoughts. Is just like I thought realignment was going to make for better matchups, but it turns out it only does for some leagues, because this doesn't, to me, amount to better matchups.
All of us have not even brought this up. There are more schools at each conference, and so there are more games, which just watered it down, and they have no choice but to play on the weeknights because of the networks, even though there's games, every game is on TV.
That's what I said. They ran out of real estate.
All right, when we come back, Jake Fisher played linebacker at the University of Arizona, joined us back when Arizona joined the Big 12, or was about to, and his reaction on that, but also his reaction on all of what Arizona's dealing with. He is a part of one of those groups, one of those NIL and donors, whatever, trying to keep everything together. Jake Fisher joins us on that, and this is 365 Sports.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. Farm-raised Wagyu beef, and of course, it is spectacular. We've discussed it all the time. And you were right, back when you had that online auction that went so incredibly well, that live auction too, that you were going to have more and more of them, and you've got one, again, scheduled for the end of the month.
Yeah, so we've got another live auction, so it'll be in person or you can bid online, coming on Tuesday, January 30th. We're going to have dinner beforehand at 5 o'clock. We're going to have smash burgers. We're also going to have some of our steaks for steak tasting. That way you can taste test it and then bid on it. And then the auction will start at 6:15. So you'll be able to bid at our place in person here in Tyler, Texas, or you can bid online at cci.live.
Tuesday, January 30th.
And don't forget, you can also use the code SICK'EM10 for 10% off your order.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you ordered from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sick'EM365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Jake Fisher, a guest we had on during a lot of the conference realignment, Pac-12, Arizona, and others, moving into the Big 12. And he joins us, former Arizona linebacker, with us on 365 Sports. Jake, it's been a tumultuous, I think is a pretty good word, with a lot going on with Fish leaving. Now Hickey, the AD, is out. How would you describe what it's like as an alum, a former player, with a lot of the turmoil, but where they are now with Brennan as the head coach, too?
Hey, guys. Well, thank you for having me. Just first, I want to make sure you can hear me. We got a lot of clouds in the sky over here, which is kind of not normal for Arizona, but I want to make sure you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a weird 7 days, man. I mean, first, Jed leaves, and it kind of leaves a void. Dave Hickey does a good job, turns around, and I think makes a great hire, and then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, he's gone. So it's been a tumultuous 7 days, to say the least. And, you got players jumping in the portal, jumping out, some of them going to wash.
Yep, I think those clouds got you, Jake.
Hold on, let me
can
call
you hear
him.
us?
Yeah, you're good. Wherever you are, just don't move, don't breathe. But we lost you there for a second. Okay, yeah, you were talking about how people going to Washington, et cetera.
Yeah, no, it's been a tumultuous 7 days for us. And, guys jumping in the portal, guys jumping out. And, I'm hoping just we get some answers here soon. I hope it all settles.
Jake, when it comes to Dave Hickey being let go, I mean, you don't see the AD hire a football coach and then get fired in a week. Like, that doesn't usually happen. Usually they're kind of tied together a little bit more. And the financial problems that they're having, what do you believe is the solution moving forward for them to climb out of this hole and make things right when it comes to leadership in the athletic department?
Well, I'm hoping that they go ahead and hire Erica Barnes over here. I think she would be an awesome hire. She has ties with a lot of the donors. And I know I'm going to be reaching out if she gets the job. I know Candrea has it right now. I don't know him very well. However, I will tell you he's probably the greatest softball coach to ever walk the face of the earth. I know that he really cares about the university. I just don't know if he wants to be the AD long term. So hopefully we make a home run hire, hire somebody from within that knows the community well, and I think they'll do a good job.
Jake, I saw, I believe it was on your Twitter feed, about you reaching out to players who have decided to stay because of they're being grabbed by others. I saw the defensive lineman today is officially now at Texas. There's obviously the attrition to Washington and elsewhere. How much have the former players and the donors gotten involved in this to try to keep this thing afloat, or even better than that?
Well, I think a lot of the former players were reaching out, whether it's just a tweet, whether it's sending messages, whether they have relationships with them, prior to getting on phone calls and whatnot. I know that, the new coach has been able to retain a lot of these guys, but every single time there's a brand new coach, there's going to be folks jumping into the portal. That's just kind of the way that college football is these days. I've gone through one of these. The coach unfortunately was fired. He didn't decide to go anywhere else. But, even the year prior, when I was there, Mike Stoops was one of the head candidates for the Florida job. So, you hear rumors, but this one is a little bit different. It's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off. You just kind of have to move forward. You have to kind of galvanize the troops, and hopefully you can get a lot of guys to stay. But anytime there's a coaching change, there are going to be people that jump into the portal. That's just kind of the way it is now.
What was it and how big was it, besides the obvious Fafita and McMillan both deciding to stay? Because I know that was into the weekend. They had the basketball game. A lot of them introduced at halftime. How much did that really, keep a hole from sinking the ship?
Well, those are the guys that kind of spearheaded a lot of these folks, returning. There are reports that they spread their NIL money out amongst the team to keep some of these guys here. And I think it says a lot that they have the ability to go somewhere else, get seven figures, and they decided to come back to Tucson because they have unfinished business. They were able to keep some NFL prospects here. I mean, you look at guys like Jonas Savanea, guys like Wendell Moy. I'd be hard-pressed to, find two better guards in the Big 12, maybe even the country. They're coming back to solidify the interior line. We got, I think, 4 or 5 guys who have started on the line. We got a lot of receivers coming back. Obviously, losing a couple guys is going to be tough, but we have a lot of guys coming back, and even on the defensive end. So it's one of those things to where they definitely spearheaded the movement. You could tell those guys are the leaders. And they're providing great leadership. That's why a lot of these guys wanted to come back. They were tied more as a team versus tied to a coach, which I respect.
What do you like the most about Brent Brennan taking over this program that is on the upswing right now?
Well, I think that, from what every player has said, he seems like he's genuine. He wants to make sure these guys are taken care of outside of football, not just on the field. And, just for the fans, it's nice to have someone that doesn't look like he's going to be a journeyman. Jed did an unbelievable job. I will never take anything away from that man and, his charisma. He went out, raised money. Not a lot of folks that come to Tucson want to put in that extra work to try to put us at the top level. But he's been at 12 or 13 different jobs. So we always knew that this could happen. And, thank goodness for Dave Hickey. He had somebody in the wings ready to go. And I think Brennan's going to do a good job. I think he's going to be here for the long term. And, hey, guess what? If he gets a bigger job and he leaves, it's because he did a good job. So we're just hoping that he stays around for a little bit, helps see this thing through. And I think that, given the right ingredients, I guess, I think that this program, especially heading into the Big 12 without an Oklahoma or a Texas, without having to go against an SC, an Oregon, or a Washington, I think that we could become one of the predominant teams in that conference.
Jake Fisher with us on 365 Sports. Arizona in flux, but also patching up some of the holes. Now that they're wrapping up what is their last year in the Pac-12 and about to be a part of the Big 12, is there as much excitement as there was perhaps when that decision was made that they're going to find a home because of the Pac-12 just kind of there and not knowing what the future was?
Well, the excitement's going to be there. I think the excitement definitely comes from having a lot of these players coming back. I mean, you have a bunch of future NFL talent on the roster. Now it's up to them to, learn the scheme. It's up to the coaches to really put a great product out there on the field. I always believe that if you have really good players, it doesn't matter what concepts you have, as long as they're able to go out, run the play, and execute, you're going to be good. Also, the fact that we know exactly where we're going to be. The Pac-12 obviously was in flux, losing a ton of money, not doing a very good job, in my opinion, over the last 10 or so years. Larry Scott, some of these other guys, I think they just dropped the ball dramatically. You had so many top institutions in that league, so many great football programs in that league, and I just think they dropped the ball. The Big 12, they obviously care about their sports. We're going to have more money to share around. Might help us retain a coach here in the future. So, and I think the NIL is there to be played. So I think that everything is kind of aligning for us to do well in the new conference.
Jake, where do you think Robert Robbins' responsibility falls in this budget crisis that they're having right now? He was very level-headed compared to some of his other counterparts in the Pac-12 when it came to the potential of realignment, but also, there are people that oversee these things, and that falls under his jurisdiction, certainly.
Well, one thing I love about him is he loves his sport. Obviously the Hickey thing kind of caught us by surprise. Honestly, even if it is not all of his fault, it's always going to roll uphill to the president. He's the one that oversees everything. So that's really all I got to say about that. I haven't really, gotten into the weeds on all these different things. Like I said, I was just as shocked as everybody else was yesterday. But, I don't think that Hickey's the first one or the only one that's going to fall. And I think that eventually it's going to catch up and he's going to have to, take over some of the blame.
Jake, what was it like to be a part of the Desert Swarm?
Well, actually, I wasn't. I actually grew up watching the Desert Swarm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much did that
inspire? I'm not as old as you guys think I am.
No, you're right.
That's just one of us, guys.
You're only about 10 or 12 years outside of college. What was it like growing up then and watching that offense in what Dick Tomey and what Arizona had with and how they played the game, the defensive game?
Well, I mean, they just swarmed to the ball. They got a bunch of guys that bought in. Kind of like, our last year's defense. Our last year's defense wasn't as good, but towards the end of the year, you can tell they were bought into the system. You had 3 or 4 hats around the ball every single time. And good things always happen when you have that many people around the ball. Secure the tackle, a couple people rip the ball out, a couple people, knock a ball in the air. You got people by the ball, they're going to intercept it, make plays. So, you hear nothing but great things about Tomey and those guys. He left a legacy. Obviously, you watch the press conference for Coach Brennan, and he brought up Tomey so many times and how many valuable lessons he taught him as a coach moving forward. So you hear nothing but great things. And, I'm hoping that eventually we can get back to that type of swarming defense. It's very hard to do, obviously. They're one of the best defenses for a 3 or 4 year period, but, one can hope.
Jake, do you feel like for both the schools in Arizona and Arizona State, that while you're in the Pac-12 and had varying levels of success over the years in football, that this move will maybe help you establish an identity that's completely different than oh, hey, California kids come here, it's a cool place to be, that maybe the shifting in the recruiting population will kind of help them show that they've been an untapped resource for years at both places?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to go back to what Coach Stoops likes to do. You want to go ahead and you want to recruit Arizona, obviously. You want to be able to recruit California. I think these guys coming from San Jose State are going to be able to do that quite a bit. But then you also want to, go into Texas and some of the Midwest. There's a thing that I always found whenever we play a team like an Oklahoma State, they had, these big linemen, they had heavy hands. You couldn't get their hands off you if they got to you. So you had to throw out defenses there so you can scrape over and get to the running back before they got your hands on them. And most of the time you get a lot of your athletes from California. Obviously Texas has a ton of athletes, but the linemen that I used to play against, most of the better ones were from the Midwest. So, you're able to get some big guys from the Midwest as long as you're able to establish yourself in Texas. And, places like Kansas and Oklahoma and, Nebraska, obviously my whole family's from Nebraska, so I know about that. But these places in the Midwest, they're starting to get more populated. You're starting to see a lot more talent come out of there. So if you're able to take advantage of all of that, you're going to be fine.
Appreciate what you're doing for your alma mater. Also, the time you spent with us a couple of different times. Jake, thank you very much. And hopefully, when everything is put together and if Arizona plays here or vice versa, we get a chance to meet you down the road.
Absolutely. I'm going to be watching the team closely this year, so you guys might see me.
Jake Fisher, former Arizona linebacker, with us on the first time when all that was going down with the conference adding the 4 schools that seemed like took forever. Colorado jumped in the water first, and eventually Arizona State, Utah too. Boy, that was back, what was it, August the 3rd or 4th, whatever day it was. I can't remember the exact date when that happened. Then, on top of that, now on the fact Arizona's trying to replenish and keep as much of their roster with Jed Fish heading and now at Washington.
Yeah, if Afita and McMillan are spreading around their NIL money, that says a lot about those guys, and that's great for Arizona. They are the stars of the show. They're losing really good players like a young man to Texas earlier today, but, those are the two. If you say, all right, what's your starting point and rally point for next year for Brent Brennan and company, it'd be, well, give me Tetairoa and McMillan, and let's go from there, and that's what they've got. So, you never know until they suit up, but they seem to be locked in with Arizona, and I say that just because the portal's not closed. In theory, they could still jump in May or whatever the timeline, but
they can right now because
they could right now.
Their coach is gone.
But
so
they're obviously pledging right now to stick around, but, post-spring, if something were to go awry, they could open it back up, I guess, in theory, but they seem to be pretty locked in, and so for all the stuff that's seemingly falling from the sky, if you're an Arizona fan, there's that. And you hold on to the little bit of hope that you have and worry about the rest as it comes. And there's certainly enough to worry about. This transition, the school's finances and things like that. But, they sound like, they're in it for the fight and whatever that fight's going to look like and whatever that challenge, I guess is probably a better word to use. Arizona fans are gearing up for it. So, yeah, it's not the way that you do it by design, moving into the Big 12. You wouldn't be choosing to move into the Big 12 to begin with if you had it all the way that you wanted. It's been a wild last year or so for Arizona, but I think that they'll figure it out over time.
JT in Pikes Peak has been with us since day one. Said it was a basketball meat grinder. We appreciate you and reaching out to us, JT in Pikes Peak, on the question about how would you describe the Big 12 men's basketball. Scotty B saying volatile. I think all the words that were used, again, they're all pretty much the same, tough as hell. It is a day in and day out. You can be at home. You can be on the road. It's going to take your best. And if you just have one of those little minute or two type lapses, you could find yourself losing a game that in this conference you cannot afford to lose because you're going to do that already because everyone's so good. It's 4:20. Craig's off the radar around the corner. Are you going to get into that Netflix story? That's a big deal. If you haven't heard about that, Craig will be all over that and much, much more. Also, when we come back, this show will be on the road in early February. We'll tell you a little bit about that and more. And this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on the loop, east of I-35 in Waco, Loop 340 and Highway 6. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pipe, steel, metal. They are really good and understand the experience, the product, and also knowing who you can contact if you are and need or want to build a metal building. They can get in touch with the contractors. They deal with them all the time. And hey, sometimes the contractors can muddy things up, delay what you want. They know who you can trust when it comes to metal buildings, and they have all the product you need, and even more now than ever before because this brand new building that they moved in December of 2022 has more than what you could imagine. And they were good at what they had. Now there's, for example, pipe, steel, metal, tubing, whatever. You had a certain length. You would get that length, you would take it home or take it to the construction site, real estate, commercial, and then you might have to either yourself cut it or take it somewhere else and have somebody else cut it. Now, all of what their product is when it comes to pipe, steel, metal, tubing is already cut for certain specific size, certain sizes that will fit what you need. It's one less thing for you to do. And the distribution, where they are loading up 18-wheelers, trailers, your pickup truck, whatever it is, so much more access and accessibility to getting it in your truck, wherever you are, the vehicle, and getting it to the site because they have more bays. It's very efficient. And they've been in business 1943. Imagine that. That means they're good at what they do, and what they have is fantastic. PioneerBoys.com.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
With the studio we have in Waco, Central Texas, just down the road from I-35, about a mile, and near McLean Stadium, the Foster Pavilion. We do our show here basically every day, along with the many other shows that we have that are college football related, etc. But we, on occasion, will go on the road, and coming up on Monday, February the 5th, we will broadcast live from NFL Media Headquarters in the Mandalay Bay, and also Radio Row. We'll be there for the full week of Monday, our shows Monday through Friday, where there will be personalities, players, Hall of Famers, media analysts, and then a lot of other quirky type things that are being sold. We'll be inside Radio Row Monday, February the 5th. And special thanks, by the way, to Alan Samuels' House of Travel, setting us up with our airline tickets into Vegas and back, and also for our Airbnb just outside of the beautiful city of Las Vegas.
Yeah, Mandalay Bay. So suck it, Mall of America food court. Well, that was
I still love that.
Look, it was easy to get in and out of, but it was so Minneapolis. It was easy to get in and out of, like the mall. Like sometimes you go to a convention center, it's like a whole deal. But the Mall of America was easy to get in and out of, other than the fact that it was like -7 every day and miserable. But when we got to Radio Row, it's the opposite of what it was now. I mean, it was so cramped. Like you would, people would like. All day long, you'd be doing the show, and somebody's tapping you on the shoulder, like, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, but you couldn't help it because it was in the food court of the Mall of America, which, even though it's a large food court, when you put a whole bunch of people not eating in there, like just doing radio shows, it gets really small really fast. But yeah, Mandalay Bay, fired up. Vegas is a fun town. I've been there in quite a long time, so I cannot wait.
I've already dealt and spoken with several people when it comes to some of the guests that we have. Some of them played in the Big 12. It looks like Quentin Johnston, who, of course, at TCU now with the Chargers. And then Kendry Miller, now with the Saints, who played at TCU on that special team they had a couple of years ago. Both of those young men we covered when it was in high school football. So those are some of the guests, along with others who will be, like Lee Steinberg. We have him lined up as the super agent. And he'll join us. That's another one, but we have many, many, many others before we can mention all of them.
What I'm looking forward to is the random local icons that always wind up at Super Bowl Media Row, because no offense to places like Phoenix or, LA or Miami or whatever, but the Vegas, like random local icons that will show up will be weird. Like, I think he's probably too old to do it now, but it would be like if Wayne Newton's just walking around, like to me, that would be wild.
No, I guess so. But that we'll be there for the week of Super Bowl 58 this weekend. Of course, on Sunday, we'll find out who will be a part of that game. We'll be in Vegas on Monday through Friday of that week. And Garrett Ross is going with us. Emery Winter's going with us. Craig Smoak, still kind of on the fence on that one. And I
have legitimate reasons as to why I'm on the fence about that. It's just a different cut for me. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I do need to obviously make that decision. I am in the process of doing so. So, yeah, we will see how that goes. But it's going to be an exciting atmosphere regardless of whether I'm there or not. And I think that it's just fascinating that Vegas is the host of a Super Bowl, given how taboo Vegas was when I was growing up, when it came to sports and how off limits it was, seemingly to even being talked about in terms of sports. And now here they are with, 2 of the 4 major pro sports, not counting the WNBA and all of the others, but now well on their way to adding basketball probably in the next few years, and we know baseball's coming their way in the next decade with the A's once the stadium gets built. So, yeah, I mean, it's a city that's thriving, and when you basically just as a country said, let's fully embrace gambling and especially sports betting, it's the epicenter of sports nowadays, for better or worse. And I think it's going to be a fascinating host city for the Super Bowl, and can't wait to see just kind of what comes out of all that, and looking forward to mostly this weekend to just figuring out who's going to be in that game and who's going to be getting promoted throughout that week and talked about throughout that week. Because if it's the Lions, that's a great story. If it's the 49ers, I mean, we've seen that plenty of times, but they're still a tremendous team with a lot of star power, and so they would be a very fun cover. And then on the other side, I mean, Chiefs or Ravens, you can't go wrong there either. So, yeah, They have a nice Final Four set up and a brand-new location for their biggest event and the biggest event in American sports. So it's going to be a show. That's for dadgum, sure.
So you have San Francisco, who's been pretty good. Had a little funk about midway through the year when they lost, 2 or 3 out of 4, whatever it was. And they found a way to survive Green Bay, which was a feel-good story with what Jordan Love and company did. Then you have Dan Campbell in Detroit. Dan Campbell is not your typical analytical type X's and O's junkie. That doesn't mean he doesn't know football. He played for a long time, A&M, Cowboys, and Giants, etc. But he is a throwback.
I think he was going to leave this job for A&M.
Yeah,
I'm going to leave.
He would have left the Lions. Like the old Lions, not the ones that he built.
Exactly. You mean like the last 40 years up until this one?
If he was Rod Marinelli and A&M called, he'd be like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Give it a few years, and he'll probably be on the downswing because that's just how the business works, and they'll be able to scoop him up at the right time. But, yeah, I mean, any other time you probably do leave the Lions for Texas A&M to return to your alma mater and have a big-time premier job, but not with this group of Lions, and I just think it's an incredible story. They're very likable. I mean, even Jared Goff being able to be a guy that gets them there after he was just sort of tossed to the wayside in favor of another quarterback and another change.
Worked out well for both sides.
It worked out well for both sides.
It did.
They went and ran, they went and won Stafford and the Rams went and won a Super Bowl and got what they wanted, and Goff now has a chance to play for it, and regardless of what they do outside of just, embarrassing themselves coming up this weekend, they're legends in Detroit for forever. I mean, the 91 team?
91 lost to Washington.
Was last in the NFC Championship game. I couldn't remember, it was 91-92. It was a 92 Super Bowl that Washington won. But, yeah, the 91 NFC title game, I mean, to reach those heights, that's crazy. I mean, I was a little kid. I was a little kid watching Barry Sanders and company do their thing, and now here they are all this time later, finally back there, and very likable team, especially their head coach there, who's just a football guy. And so, yeah, it's a great story.
It really is.
I think the best and the key to Dan Campbell is that he's doing his act. He's not trying to be like anybody else.
Yeah.
He's trying to be Dan Campbell. I think that's why maybe a lot of the Belichick assistants haven't worked out. And it may not be because of their own fault. It's because you get hired in a place and you go, hey, we want you to do exactly what Bill Belichick does. And like, look, I learned all this stuff under Bill Belichick, but I'm not Bill Belichick. I'm Bill O'Brien. I'm Josh McDaniels. And both those guys might have also been undone by the fact that they're a little bit cantankerous just in general. And I don't think that kind of works when you're not successful. Like Bill Belichick can go up there and be like, we're just unhappy with the defense right now and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, well, it's 6 Super Bowls, so, like he can do that. But when you've not won anything and you're, trying to prove it, you can't try to be like Bill Belichick. And you have to go do your thing. And I don't know if all these guys ever really went and truly did their thing.
How many Jimmy Johnson assistants?
Yeah, it was
Dave Wanstead eventually had success.
But
and Butch Davis a little bit.
So, look, Dan Quinn had success. And that's why I'm surprised that, everybody forgot. It ended bad in Atlanta for him, but he took the Falcons to the Super Bowl and they ran up against Tom Brady, who was yes, they had a big collapse in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. Well, welcome to the friggin' club, man. That's not so much of a thing. That's why I'm surprised he hasn't got one, because when he went to Atlanta, he was not trying to do Pete Carroll. He was trying to do Dan Quinn.
Yep.
That's what you have to do. So I do think that the coaches that are the best, I'll say this about Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is not his dad. He's not trying to do Mike Shanahan. He's trying to do Kyle Shanahan. Mike McDaniel, who studied under both of them, is not trying to do either one of those. He's definitely trying to do Mike McDaniel. Mm-hmm. And that's why those guys are successful. Andy Reid, I believe, is on the Bill Walsh tree, right? So,
Green Bay, yeah.
Or Holmgren, he's on the Holmgren tree.
Holmgren, yeah.
Well, is he Mike Holmgren? No, he's Andy freaking Reid. So, look, John Harbaugh, he's his own guy. The ones who are the most, they are
I love
doing
it for Andy Reid.
They were doing it their own way, and I think that's the most important thing. And Dan Campbell comes in, and he's, saying we're biting kneecaps and we're doing all these things, and people are like, oh, look at this clown. Maybe a franchise that hasn't won anything in forever needs a little bit of fire over they need, his
speeches have been legendary, and maybe more to come. By the way, first job that Andy Reid had out of he went to junior college, Glendale Community College, then went to BYU. He's a BYU guy. That's also his first job on his resume was a GA at BYU back in '82, and eventually, yes, at Green Bay Packers, and then, of course, the tree with Holmgren, who was spread out throughout the NFL. And he was run out of Philadelphia. They were really good, Donovan McNabb and all that. And now, not only Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid, and I'm sure there's a few others on that team, 6 consecutive AFC championship games, and also 3 Super Bowls and winning twice with the great Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Philly, though, they felt like they kind of tapped that as much as they possibly could, and it was like he couldn't break through. But then again, the reason why he broke through in Kansas City was a variety of factors, but he also got Patrick Mahomes. And so, that helped matters as far as getting over that hump, and he was very good in Philadelphia. But no, he's writing his masterpiece or painting his masterpiece right now in Kansas City for sure. And, I know the Ravens are the favorites, or I assume that they are. But I don't know how you're going against Kansas City at this point. It's the postseason. I get it. There's other teams that look better, but man, you got to bury Mahomes and the Chiefs and then throw piles and piles of dirt on them to put them away. So yeah, this weekend's game in the AFC in particular is going to be what a slugfest and just fight that's going to be.
Lamar Jackson in a championship game. They were like, yeah, but. Kind of like there is right now a little bit with Josh Allen. We seem to want to break down the quarterbacks who lose. Dak's been a part of this before and obviously has not always played well in the postseason. But Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes winning that game on the road. He's never had to play a playoff game on the road because they've been so good. They've hosted almost all of them. And then, of course, the Lions breaking the streak of 91. And on top of that, here's San Francisco with what they do. They've been really, really consistent. And Deebo Samuel is not quite 100%, but appears as if he will play on Sunday.
It's still up in the air on him.
Yeah.
And that'd be a huge thing for the Lions if Deebo Samuel is not there. That would be enormous in that of course, they still have Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and, these great things to make their offense go. But the X factor player in all that is when you have a healthy Deebo Samuel, man, you don't know where Kyle Shanahan's going to line him up or what they're going to do, or he having 2 guys like that in Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel that you can go to and go, all right, we need to play here. Which one am I going to do is a luxury that most coaches don't have. So yeah, it'll be really interesting and to see what would be the top quarterback in the draft when he came out in Jared Goff against the last pick in the draft through different journeys is really.
Is Brock Purdy a bum like some people want to make him out to be now at this point?
I'm not like that. I don't like that narrative. If he and Patrick Mahomes, went through the old school quarterback challenge, he's not winning.
No.
Okay. But he's winning. he's got them in the NFC Championship game. How many teams would take Brock Purdy as their quarterback if they were in the championship game?
When Green Bay was looked like they might have an edge in that game, which would never really separate it.
Yeah, I saw farther than Dak.
I saw a lot of this. Well, this is what you get when you don't go out and draft a quarterback. The quarterback position gets too much credit. They don't get enough credit. All that they also get hammered. But good Lord,
look, the dude last week was sly enough to wipe rain off his hand while he was throwing a pass. Like, you know what? That's some skill.
You know who he's pretty good? You know who knows he's pretty good? The Cowboys.
Yeah. Look, and again, if you have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey, before I even get to some of the other guys that are like Jawan Jennings is their third wide receiver, and he's a really serviceable third wide receiver, makes big plays, is tough to cover, all that. If you've got those guys and you've got a quarterback who's hitting them when they're open, then that's all you need. Sometimes it doesn't need to be spectacular. As a matter of fact, many of the Super Bowl quarterbacks, were having great years. Look, Mark Rippon wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he won a bunch of games for the Redskins.
Yep. Won an MVP in a Super Bowl.
Jim McMahon had the best defense of all time backing him, but he also had the best year of his career when he was in the 85 Bears. Again, not a Hall of Famer, but had a really good year. There are several guys like that, and then there are guys who are Hall of Famers that won Super Bowls. It's, outside of Trent Dilfer and, say, Brad Johnson, I don't think there's anybody who was kind of carried there completely by their defense, and even Brad Johnson still had a really good year under John Gruden that year. So there's not many that fall in that category, and I don't think he's that. I think he's a guy he's probably like a Mark Rippon.
You know what? When someone goes up to Trent Dilfer or someone goes up to, did I say Trent Dilfer?
Yeah.
And they go up to a team. Yeah, you won a Super Bowl ring, but you weren't really a good player. I don't give a flying damn. Look at this baby on my hand. All right, when we come back, Craig Smoak with a lot of different stories in sports off the radar. By the way, in about an hour, Paul Catalina, a little bit over an hour, will have his top 5, and Baylor tight ends coach Jared Anderson will join us. John McClain on the NFL. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, for great pricing, and for great offers over at the dealership. Whether you bought your car there originally or you're just looking to get one from the fine folks over at Richard Carr right now, or you're looking to get just some service on your vehicle, they can hook you up. And right now they've got the Buicks, which are a perfect combination of first-class luxury and value like no other sport utility vehicle out there on the market. Right now, you've got the Buick Envision, ranked the #1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers, and it offers amazing value. Right now, you can save $5,000 on a Buick Envision, and qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on Buick's top-rated SUVs. Plus, if you're military or first responders, you can save an additional $500 on the Buick Envisions or the Buick lineup as well. They can fill you in on more of the details over there at the dealership. But if you're not looking to buy new, well, they have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock for you to choose from as well. 100 used cars and trucks to choose from, all inspected with a 172-point inspection and the Richard Carr seal of approval. Their financing goal is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So whether you're looking to buy new, buy pre-owned, or just get your car worked on, for 24 years in Central Texas, they have built a reputation over at Richard Carr as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Taking a look at a grab bag of stories from around the athletics landscape, both college and pro. Just kind of depends on what the headlines are when this segment rolls around. Try to pluck things throughout the week when there's items of interest, but pretty straightforward here. In the NFL, you got some coaching changes going on, and also got some TV news as well, and maybe sprinkle in a little baseball and basketball all at the same time if we can here in this segment. But first things first, let's get to the TV ratings from this past weekend, as there was a monster number when it came out to the NFL and their playoff games. But, man, the NFL and its stranglehold on the American public when it comes to just the popularity of it is unbelievable. You got the NBA that's out there trying everything under the sun to maintain interest in their regular season. College football is going through some maturation, I guess you could say, trying to figure out what it is actually going to look like over the next few years. Baseball, we know, has had their ups and downs, but the NFL just seems to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so this past weekend, you had the Bills and the Chiefs, the nightcap to close out Sunday night, averaging 50.3 million viewers. 50.3 million viewers for Chiefs and Bills, the most watched divisional playoff game ever. That was on CBS. And then the playoff game, or I guess last year's Sunday night game to compare it to, was the Niners and the Cowboys, and that drew 45.6 million. So Chiefs and Ravens actually drawing an extra 5 million in a huge number of 50-plus for the NFL. You also had Texans-Ravens, got 31.8 million viewers over on ABC and ESPN. Chiefs and was the Chiefs and Jag? Oh, that was okay. That's another comparison thing. So yeah, the Texans and Ravens drew the 31.8 million number. So yeah, just massive there. So 31.8 in the opener, 37.5 in the Saturday night nightcap with Packers and Niners, 40.4 for then Sunday afternoon for Bucks and Lions. So it just kept going up. It was 31.8, then it was 37.5, and then it was 40.4, and then by the time you got to Sunday night, 50.3 million. That was nearly 10 million more viewers than the Sunday afternoon game between the Bucks and the Lions.
50 million.
50.3 million and
two elite quarterbacks. Yep. A team that's like running football right now, and a team that is just, God bless them, they can't seem to ever get to that next level. That's 50 million.
Yeah, and I think I might be saying Texans, Ravens, and Chiefs, Bills. Chiefs, Bills. think I might have said Chiefs-Ravens.
Yeah,
Maybe I didn't.
Chiefs-Bills, yeah.
But Chiefs-Bills is what I was referring to, of course, and that's the one that got $50.3 million. So, yeah, Texans-Ravens, 31.8, Packers-Niners, 37.5, Bucks-Lions, 40.4, and then 10 million people. Is that the Taylor Swift effect? I'm not even joking. I mean, 10 million people jumping on from one game to the next on a Sunday.
I mean, look, what do you think? My daughter was watching simply because of Taylor Swift.
I'm not making a joke.
I was watching because of Jason Kelce.
Well, when Kelce scored the touchdown, I was like, here you go, Ava. And it shot up, and that was what drew her.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's – I mean, how else do you explain 10 million people tuning in that weren't otherwise tuned in?
As a Swiftie.
As a day one Swiftie.
As a Swiftie. Yeah. I do, I'd rather see Taylor damn Swift than Jerry frickin' Jones every time something's going on with the Cowboys. Thank you, Taylor Swift.
As a Cowboys
can you imagine
fan,
if Taylor was dating a Cowboy, though?
Oh, dear God. Dear God. Well, I mean, you saw what happened to Jessica Simpson.
Yeah,
and,
she's nowhere close.
You saw what happened to Tony Romo.
Yeah. Okay. Smokey, I'll just ask you real quick. Favorite Swift song?
Get Out of My Way.
He's got to check to see if that is one.
She's had so many
songs. It's the one
songs.
where she's saying she's in a fight with Katy Perry.
No, that is Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're also thinking of Look What You Made Me Do.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But wasn't there a song back when I was younger? Bad Blood. Back in the 70s. Who sang that one?
I don't know, but if we were on the ticket, that would be a drop.
Yeah. It might be on 365 Sports. But I did know about the song. I thought it was always her fighting with Kim Kardashian. Neil Sedaka. Yeah, one of his.
Yeah. Close enough. Close enough.
I remembered something.
Okay, you want to talk about, we might see a Neil Sedaka. Is he alive? Is Neil Sedaka alive? Oh. If he is, we might see maybe one of those weird guys walking around in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
All right, back to the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, that's a monster number, 50.3 million. Again,
ridiculous.
I want to point out 10 million added from Sunday afternoon to Sunday night. So if that's not the Taylor Swift effect, I don't know what it possibly could be outside of just the Chiefs and the Bills are that much more popular than the Bucks and the Lions. But from game one to game four, that rating went up and up and up and up to going from 31.8 all the way up to 50 million by the end of the weekend. So massive numbers, beats that 50 number. Cowboys, Niners, as I mentioned from last year, in that same spot, they got a little over 45. So NFL's eating good, boys. And I can only imagine now with the Chiefs still involved as well, and you've got the Ravens. And
who's the night game? Is it Baltimore and Kansas City coming up Sunday? Who's the late game? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't even know. I haven't even looked ahead that far.
You would think it would be Baltimore would be the early game because of the Eastern time zone compared to San Francisco.
Probably know that, but I haven't even paid that close attention to the timings of the games this weekend.
I'll tell you right now. Kansas City, Baltimore's first.
Yeah,
Detroit,
it has
San
to be.
Francisco second.
Different parts of the country.
Okay, so there you go. Massive number for the NFL this past weekend. And meanwhile, there's a lot of coaching changes and coaching openings and things being figured out by various organizations who are not in the position of those other teams. And we know, for example, that the Raiders have their head coach, Antonio Pierce, as they elect to go with their interim choice there, the former Redskins, Giants linebacker, and a guy who grew up knowing the Raiders, loving the Raiders, and knowing about just kind of their lifestyle, right? Being a Raiders different, right? And we know that from people we know that are Raiders fans. There's just something different about the Raiders, and he has that, and that's something that drew a lot of fans to wanting him to be the guy to get the job, and eventually he was the guy that was, in fact, given that job. I just want your thoughts on that, Paul, in particular. First on the Raiders, just going with Antonio Pierce, and I'll get to the other tidbit with him here in a second.
I think look, they messed up when they didn't go with Rich Bisaccia. They really did, because he had them going, and they sometimes it's not about like the big name or this guy who's going to change your thing. Like, you've got a team that believes in a coach and a coach that believes in a team. Like those things, you can give him more players to work with, but if it's working, don't mess with it. And Antonio Pierce took a team that was, I mean, not want to say at each other's throats, but had completely tuned out Josh McDaniels, completely tuned them out. And here's a guy who's on that staff that then, I mean, he took on Josh McDaniels and was trying to explain to him like what the problems he was having. When they let Josh McDaniels go, he took the reins and really bought into the players, and they finished strong. Now, they've got questions at quarterback, but I think that's what sometimes, again, the Davis family, particularly Mark Davis, is prone to either not thinking things through or outthinking himself. And this is a time where he just said, okay.
Yeah, and I think being the Raiders in Las Vegas now, like, honestly, you can afford to miss if Antonio Pierce isn't the guy. Like, I don't think that there's, like, some, like, oh, God, we've got to get this right now. I don't think there's, like, I'm sure fans feel that urgency, but I don't think the organization should by any means. So, you know what? Go with the guy that everybody loves, and if he flails and flounders, then you've got an excuse to get him out of there. But if you'd just gone ahead and done it originally, I think that you risk pissing off the wrong people again and just kind of being stuck in that same mode. So they do go Antonio Pierce.
Isn't he the one that helped get Arizona State in trouble?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Yep, he was.
Oh, well, just move on.
Well, they can go hire Herm Edwards.
I don't want rule followers.
Well, he's a Raider, right?
I'm glad Herm's back in the studio.
I think that actually added to his Raider resume was being a part of that. But the other part of the Raiders coin here is the GM has now apparently been hired, and that is Tom Telesco, the Chargers general manager, former Chargers general manager, is with that club for 11 years. They were not very good. There's a lot of people that apparently love his talent acquisition skills and feel like he provided the Chargers with talent. But if you look at the fact that they were well below 500, they never won the division. They made the playoff only 3 times in 11 years, and they won only 2 playoff games. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but he's good at player acquisition or talent evaluation is at least a couple of the reports that I read. So they stay in division. And Tom Telesco is now the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders. And Antonio Pierce, obviously, as we've been talking about, is your head coach there now as well. So you've got that filled up, both GM and head coaching job when it comes to the Las Vegas franchise. And we know that there's been other jobs out there getting filled throughout. Who was it just yesterday? The Titans, the job got filled there as they moved on from Mike Vrabel. So that one was another one. But what you have left over now at this point is you got Carolina, right? Still has not hired a head coach just yet. You've got the Chargers, who now need to figure out who their head coach is going to be still. The Atlanta Falcons, the Washington Commanders, and the Seattle Seahawks, all still in search of their new head coaches. The Patriots had hired Jared Mayo, and you had Tennessee with Brian Callahan replacing Mike Vrabel. I couldn't think of his name.
Callahan at Cincinnati.
Yes, he was.
He came over from Cincinnati, which that was the name escaping me. And so that's a very interesting hire because of what he's been able to do at Cincy, and just intriguing that that's the direction Tennessee decides to go post-Vrabel.
Well, they'll see if Will Levis has any Joe Burrow in him, and I don't think that's.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know about that. But again, I don't think that they're married to Will Levis for all that long. I think that this is they don't have a lot of picks, the Titans, and so.
But is this him tied to Levis? If his career's tied to Levis,
no,
if
I don't
Levis
think
doesn't
work
out, he's gone.
Yeah, I don't think
No,
so. I think that they'll I don't think they are.
that.
They can draft another quarterback. They pick at 7, so they could reasonably, maybe get. Most of the guys that you want, except for maybe I would think the top 3 would be off the board by 7 then, but you never know. But I think that it's interesting hire for them. I of course I like the Patriots hire. I think that Gerard Mayo is going to be really interesting. He's already doing Gerard Mayo and not Bill Belichick, even though he's there. You can tell he's doing a lot of different things, so that's good. And but yeah, I'm interested to see how the Titans go. Rand Carthon is the new general manager there. He comes from the San Francisco tree as well. And we'll see what happens there. I do think that young coach, young GM, they're rebuilding, and we'll see what happens with the Titans.
Yeah, so there you go. There's the Commanders still open, the Falcons still open, the Chargers still open, the Panthers still open, and the Seahawks still open. But some others closed down now that the Titans have made their choice of Brian Callahan, and obviously the Raiders now making their GM hire. So Interesting stuff to keep track of with the coaching carousel, and that leads me to the college football-related note is that there was speculation, talk, reports, what have you, that Jim Harbaugh is basically in line for the Chargers job, and it's just a matter of, I guess, the phrasing of it, in striking distance is what one of the initial reports had it situated as. They were meeting or had met again, and so now it's just on to, I guess, just Harbaugh watch, basically, is just waiting to see if he's going to take that job and if they're going to lock that down. And if so, then obviously there's a whole tsunami effect in college football and all of that. But it appears that they're kind of zeroing in, and yet it's weird just the way people are phrasing it. Like, you would think the job's just a layup, but there's still a chance that he doesn't take it. So we'll see, but we got to be on a little bit of a ticking clock here.
You would think Michigan is getting a little impatient, too,
I would think
no
so.
matter
Look,
what he did.
And look, it may not set up like a wave. It might just be a ripple because they might just make Sharon more the head coach.
Very well.
Which,
I mean, more of like recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting wise,
yeah.
and but also like if they make Sharon more the coach, there's a good chance that he can retain a lot of that roster, since that staff will mostly stay in place. You would think, but yeah, Jim Harbaugh in the end, like I just think. Look, you're already in your second interview with the Chargers. You went and interviewed with the Panthers. He's interviewed with the Falcons. Like, you've had these interviews. Like, going back to Michigan doesn't seem realistic at this point. Like, I went, and like, unless you're trying to be like, I looked, nothing's as good as this. I'm here forever. But then everybody knows it's not true. So just go take the Chargers job, coach up Justin Herbert, maybe win a Super Bowl there for a team that's never won one. And
well, Bill Belichick's still a free agent, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to Atlanta.
Yeah, well, you think?
Yeah,
it probably is. But I mean, he's still out there. I mean, it's not yet that you like the clock is like you better decide. You can't tell Jim Harbaugh, can you, that you better decide by the weekend, or can you?
I mean, I don't know if you say by the weekend, but you got to decide here at some point pretty soon.
Yeah, you
they
want these things
go hire
before
somebody.
you get to the Super Bowl week.
Yeah, I mean, they got to work too.
Free agency's about to start.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they got work to do. They got a draft to prepare for. So yeah, they need to get a guy in there. But this doesn't have to be today. But yeah, Harbaugh. All signs pointing to there being a strong chance he could take that Chargers job. But we will see, and you would think that something would kind of be known this week. It's just feeling like it's that pressure's building for there to be a decision on that particular job. So there's that with the NFL coaching carousel. Meanwhile, the interesting part here as far as TV viewership goes, I mentioned the NFL ratings earlier, but this was very interesting, and from the world of pro wrestling, which is you might not expect to be involved when it comes to our typical conversation here, but the WWE announced today a $5 billion media rights deal with Netflix to air Monday Night Raw for 10 years, starting in January of 2025. This is a big deal because it's Netflix's first huge foray, huge attempt at live weekly entertainment on a streaming platform, and they've obviously got a massive audience as well. But this means that Monday Night Raw, after 30 plus years of being on cable television, linear TV, they will now in January 2025 be making the move from USA Network, where they have been since 2005, and they were on USA and then they left and they bounced around a little bit and then came back to USA in 2005. It's by far, I think, USA's regularly most watched program and has been for quite some time. But they've been with USA since 2005, and starting in 2025, 20 years after they got back together, it will be Netflix for Monday Night Raw. And that will be not only in the U.S., but also in Canada, the U.K., and Latin America. And they plan to add other countries over time. But Netflix says it will be the home for all WWE shows and specials outside of the U.S., including their various programs, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, etc. But that's a big dang deal that they are leaving USA and they're doing it for Netflix, which is now saying, all right, we're making our next big move. And I'm fascinated by this because I figured they, could have had any number of options. I mean, they work with Fox for SmackDown, and they've had so many partners over the years, but to go Netflix for Monday Night Raw and leave the USA Network, that's the future happening right now.
Yeah, and then what does that mean for their deal long term with Peacock and
who's
all
going to pay for this?
Yeah, all that. Are
you going to have a Netflix 1, 2, and 3 level?
I mean, they already have it. Yeah. So like $5, $6, $4.
to watch WWE.
But for the WWE, Netflix is the most popular streaming service, so they don't really have to worry about it. Like they might get, Netflix. I think it's a win-win on that regard. Although, taking the chance of taking your biggest show off of over-the-air broadcast television is, that's a big gamble. The Pac-12 tried to do it, right? The Pac-12 tried and it failed. But this is the WWE. It's got a really cooked-in international fan base. So I think it'll work out. They had a lot of big news on the WWE front today, Craig. I don't want to, if you want to get to that other one, but, were there, more stuff when it comes to brand names and big stars and all that?
Talking about The Rock?
Yeah, The Rock.
He's joining the TKO group board. That's just another part of the announcements made today. Now, they are not leaving USA entirely. They're leaving Raw. SmackDown's moving from Fox over to USA. So USA is going to still have their WWE programming. It'll just be the different flagship show, and then they're leaving USA as well with their NXT program, which will now go to the CW. So there's a shuffling of the chairs as they have their new round of media rights deals, and Nick Khan, very familiar in the sports world, is the one leading that charge. So their shows are moving all around, but the biggest news is not SmackDown going from Fox to USA or NXT going from USA to the CW. It's Raw going from USA to Netflix and becoming a part of the new live streaming efforts of that company. And also announced today that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be joining the TKO group board there as well. So, I think that's as much for Flash as anything else, but a very interesting move and something that matters. Why are we mentioning it here? Because live sports and streaming and live events on streaming just seems inevitable, and this is a giant jump in the deep end on the part of the WWE and Netflix. So this could have ramifications moving forward if we start to see more added to the streamers.
Well, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Justin, on this topic, Raw's last episode on USA will be October 2024. They're going to announce another deal from November to January.
I've seen that part. Okay.
SmackDown will be moving from Fox to USA, so the Big Ten and Big 12 football will be able to air on the main Fox channel on Friday night. So there's a little bit of why some of this maneuvering is going on.
Yeah, and they weren't quite getting, in some cases, the money that they were desiring, but there's just a lot of shuffling. And so, thank you for the clarification. I didn't know about that little pocket when they won't have a deal, but that's interesting. So that'll be another little cash little bonus, I guess, that they'll add into that. But this is fascinating news because that's been a staple on cable television for 30-plus years now, and it is going to Netflix starting in 2025. So, this is just the new era as we see it, and there's a few things off the radar.
It's jam-packed with, and I saw that Netflix story, and I was like, even though I don't watch professional wrestling, understanding the business and what Nick Khan and what they're doing, and my goodness, it's just like there's something new all the time. And that's why it's fun when we can get Bob Thompson or Patrick Crakes, Jim Williams, and others to discuss it with our show.
Before we go to break, have you guys heard about the rumors that Chip Kelly might be going back to the NFL as an OC?
No.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're out there, and
so there's another domino about the
fact. But that one would be really interesting, especially since he barely made it out with his life this year at UCLA. Mm-hmm. If he were just to leave them in the lurch in almost February. There's also another weird story, and we'll talk about it during the break, because, Craig, I might need your Twitter expertise on this, about Gunnar Gundy that I'm very confused about right now.
The fact that he's back in the transfer portal?
Well, he has an infographic about where he's committed, and it doesn't make any sense.
Say Oklahoma.
No.
Oh, I thought he... No.
Wait, Gunnar Gundy went from Oklahoma State to Ohio.
Yeah, but...
Ohio University. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So... No, let's take a break because I want to make sure.
I don't even know what you're referencing. So.
Are we gossiping here?
I don't know. I'll show it to you, Craig, here in a second. I sent it to Gary.
Am I not on this set?
I need his help. I don't need you in this one. I need him in this one, and then you can comment on it.
What's up, man? How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good. But good Craig's really good at seeing through Twitter nonsense. And this might be Twitter nonsense.
Which means he's good at seeing through me.
I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to put this up as a graphic if it's just Gunnar Gundy trolling everybody.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Go to Gunnar Gundy's Twitter feed right now, and then we'll take a break and we'll talk about it.
You done?
Yes.
All right, Craig, thank you. With Off the Radar
we'll
every
talk
Tuesday
about it, though, if it's real.
And Thursday at around 4:45. John McClain around the corner. See if we could possibly get him on earlier. Jared Anderson, longtime coach at TCU, now a part of Dave Aranda's staff at Baylor. Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Marco's
Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. And Bob Mock sent me a note the other day. They have some new product, a new menu item with Marco's Pizza. It is the cheesy bread that's got a little heat to it. It's awesome. Here's what they call it. Marco's Pizza, the Reaper Cheesy Bread. Available right now at any of the 5 locations in Waco. It's almost as if Waco is a tester market right now for the Reaper Cheesy Bread. Belle Meade, Shida Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. You can order online, marcos.com. Call for a pickup and delivery. But the Reaper Cheesy Bread, all new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with spicy cheese blend of infused jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. Only $5.99, a limited time only, so you can do that in the Waco market at the Marcos that are here in the Central Texas area. Fastest growing pizza brand in America, Marco's Pizza, Bob Mock, the owner, 5 locations, and the all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread. And again, hot made dough, fresh made hot dough, and also the cheesy blend spices of jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. Pizza lovers get it.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Ring in the new year with unbeatable savings on the new 2023 Ram trucks during the Wrap Up the Year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Take advantage of this limited time opportunity and start the new year in style. Shop our great selection in-store or online today.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler in East Texas. Aged Wagyu beef and so much more you have on your ranch. And what is next?
We are planning another auction January 30th. This auction will be an in-person, online also, a live auction like we did the first time. You come out to the ranch, dinner is going to be provided. It'll be a variety of steaks, hamburger, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, roast, all of the different Wagyu cuts. It's going to be on a Tuesday. It's on January 30th, and it'll kind of be your get ready for Valentine's dinner auction.
We, of course, have a great relationship, partnership with what you do. How has the reaction been as your name and what you guys do at TexasBeefHouse.com grown?
It has grown a lot over this last year. I kind of made a joke at the beginning of 2023 and told my husband, 2023 is going to be our year. I don't know what we're going to do, but something with 2023, it's going to be our year. And we started our auction. So many things have changed for us this year, which has been for the better. So we just want to tell all of our customers, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for your continued support in the year of 2023, and we hope that you return to us in 2024.
And they will. Repeat customers, because the product is amazing. Aged Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Do you know the last time that I said something other than BYU? Do you know the last time I came back too early from a return liner billboard from a sponsor?
I think you're cursing yourself.
I am. I just wanted to bring that up. I don't have a lot of accomplishments daily, but that's one of them. I feel like I'm on a pretty good run with it.
Look, you know what you just did?
No.
You were the catcher in the 9th inning of a perfect game, and you ran out to the mound, and you're like, hey, you haven't given up a base runner. Did you know that? Don't screw it up. See you later.
Yeah. Or it's like being on the mound and be like, man, look how great I'm pitching. I'm getting everybody out. And then you still have 2 innings to go, basically. Right. But, yeah, I mean, you've improved on not saying the things incorrectly over and over again.
I even pronounced the Arizona defensive lineman, nailed Ken at San Jose State. By the way, I'm not going to go there. Hall of Fame, Paul. I'm stunned that you have not brought this up. They're about to announce it.
I'm just waiting. Like I'm dying.
With what should be Adrian Beltre had 99% of the votes that were at least recorded up until even earlier this afternoon. And hopefully the former Ranger, Dodger, Red Sox, and Mariner will be a part of baseball's Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Paul, Craig, did you want to get into that, what you guys were teasing, or is that fake?
Yeah, we just teased it to end the break, but Paul was asking because Gunnar Gundy entered the transfer portal after committing to Ohio, and I don't know what the story is behind that exactly, but some fake account under Gunnar Gundy's name put out a commitment graphic that he was heading to Alabama, and that's what Paul saw. I hadn't seen that, and so it took a couple seconds to realize that, yes, in fact, it's fake, and Gunnar Gundy is not heading to Alabama, but he is in the transfer portal again this cycle. So just to address that, not like tease everybody and then not mention it again, but that's what
I was trying to act like we didn't say it.
No, I mean so it's another internet joke.
That's why I didn't want to go ahead and run with it. I needed your forensic expertise to go through this.
I lead this group, and I'm saying maybe 7 times I have been fooled by fake accounts, the frauds. Like Ian Rappaport's one that just about 3 times. He's gotten me 2 or 3. Whoever has gotten me 2 or 3 times. There was one recently where Brett McMurphy texts me and goes, that's not a real account. I think it was Jalen Milroe was entering the transfer portal. And luckily, Brett got that to me pretty quickly.
To be a fake reporter account is a really interesting way to announce to the world that you're never going to ask a girl out on a date. That's that's
no.
Just...
There is, I've never been a big troll, so I don't. I mean, I kind of sort of understand the enjoyment, but past a certain level, when you're really just screwing with people, I just don't get it. I don't understand the appeal or the enjoyment of that. Obviously, I'm not. Obviously, I'm somewhat alone in that because there's a lot of people that enjoy it. But there was somebody one time I saw was trying to make fun of a guy. It's like, man, how did this guy get this girl? And the person said, well, you're a fake LeBron account posting, so maybe that's the first step is to not be, a fake LeBron account asking how this real-life guy got this real-life girl, and that would be your first step. And I don't know, it was funny the time I saw it. But, yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and you got to wade through a lot of nonsense, especially now on social media. So, no, Gunnar Gundy is not going to Alabama, as this Gunnar Gundy account announced a couple of hours ago, apparently.
The Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame tracker, as of 10 minutes ago, Adrian Beltre remains above the 99% percentage. The 75 is the cutoff. And as of 12 minutes ago, Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton all can feel very comfortable at 82% up to 99%. Billy Wagner's at 78%, and Gary Sheffield is at 74.3%. And that's going to be hard to make up.
Let's get Gary Sheffield in. If you're at 7, who are these jerks not putting Gary Sheffield in? What does a guy have to do? I mean, he played in a lot of teams. He was always one of the best players on those teams. He was one of the most versatile players of his era. He was a great hitter. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It frustrates me. And look, I also get that, if you limit the number of people, so in the NFL, they're never going to take, other than the 50th anniversary year, they're never going to take, 30 people or whatever, and they had that so they could kind of
make up for lost time.
Cleans
there was a logjam.
It cleans up some of the logjam for sure. But if you're in the NFL and you take like 8 guys every year or whatever it is, then like you have that.
It's
7
5
to 8.
to 7 plus some veterans.
Yeah,
right?
so you're going to have a class that's less than 10. And if that's the message that Major League Baseball wants to send, that's fine. So you're not going to always get first ballot Hall of Famers because you're going to run up against years where, there's guys who are just on the cusp, but they'll get on their second year. But none of these guys that are Hall of Famers have done anything to be Hall of Famers or not be Hall of Famers since they retired. If you're a Hall of Famer when you're retired, you're a Hall of Famer.
That's a great argument. If you're a Hall of Famer 7 years after you were eligible, you were a Hall of Famer the first year, and sometimes there's the weight. Different sports have a longer
That's the thing
wait.
that I don't like, and that's why when you have too many people that have just varying wild agendas about, protecting the sanctity of the Hall, and I know you want to keep it right, but if Gary Sheffield is barely is barely out of the Hall of Fame today, then what has he done to change your mind over the last few years? It just, to me,
remember that year there was nobody?
Yeah, and then there's nobody.
Nobody.
Well, but see, the year there was nobody, the next year, a couple of the guys who were nobody the year before got in. So what did they do? Not playing baseball to all of a sudden get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and first timers, of course. It seems like there's been like almost one a year of late. There was about a 5-year gap from Rickey Henderson until Frank Thomas, where there was a 5-year gap where no first-time ballot Hall of Famer, and that's what Adrian Beltre is on the cusp or the verge of being involved. I love the guy as a player, as good, best. He's in that conversation of the best defensive third baseman, but also was a productive 3,000 hits, 470 home runs, and a run producer, an incredible guy in the clubhouse. And man, I think he enjoyed the Rangers World Series as much as anybody that was a part of that team.
But actually, I think he did. I think it was also weird when they handed him the World Series trophy. Like, he kind of looked like he was somebody who's not comfortable holding a kid, because it's like not his.
Yeah,
and I think there is that part of, I didn't earn this, but those who are Ranger supporters will say, well, you were a part of how we got here eventually, along with hundreds of other players, but you particularly are in that top tier group, and he's deserving of feeling like he had a part in it. He doesn't deserve a ring, don't get me wrong, but he definitely, has his place in franchise history and is amongst the greatest of all time. And so to be able to even see the Rangers get to that point was special. Like, to see him, even if he wasn't a part of the team per se, to be around, to be one of their legends that was there to congratulate this team and to be a part of the celebration, I thought was awesome. And, I mean, he's pretty much a guarantee, but the Rangers have already put out a graphic saying, welcome to the Hall, Adrian Beltre. So he is officially heading to Cooperstown, which one of my favorite players in any sport ever. And, I could not be happier for the guy. It's awesome.
Todd Helton, in. Joe Mauer, in. Adrian Beltre, in. I don't see.
No, Billy Wagner didn't make it.
Wow.
And Gary Sheffield appears to have not made it.
Wagner was right above that edge, yeah.
Again, Billy Wagner and Gary Sheffield's not going to come back next year, hit 40 home runs, and go, oh, well, yeah, he does. I mean, that's not going to happen. Just put him in.
Yeah, it's almost, it's no different than what you guys have said, despite the fact I'm a Heisman voter. I get it that there's like 900 voters. And I again, when Robert Cessna contacted me, I was like, oh my God, what an incredible honor, and I take it very seriously. But you wonder how many who have had a vote for 50 years are turning in their votes before even the last weekend or two of the games. Because remember, there used to be national champions that didn't count whether they won or lost in a bowl game.
We know that happens because people tell you that they've already turned it in, and almost like it's a bragging right. It's like, no, dude, you're a doofus for turning it in this early, for one. And then I just feel like with the Heisman, it's one thing to have as many people as they do, although I think when you're like pushing 1,000 voters, that's kind of a lot, but that's okay. It's just that some of them, I just like, how? Like, that's all. It's like, how did you get a Heisman? Like, all respect, due respect. I'm not saying I deserve one either. I'm just wondering how you got one because you're like 23. Like, what have you... it's just confusing of kind of how that process works.
Yeah, they did when they called me, and I don't know, was it been 4, 5, or 6 years ago, said that they were trying to get some new blood into the
Well, that makes
system.
sense. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
But I don't think, like, here's what I think for the baseball. I think the Baseball Hall of Fame should do it like the NFL Hall of Fame. I think that, like, you know, like basketball seems to get it right most of the time. Like, I don't like, there's some times where you're like, well, man, it's been a long time for this person. But for the most time, but like baseball has this, like, and they're just so dyed in the wool of this, like they've got to streamline their process. I think the Heisman too. I don't think taking away votes, but I would say like maybe you vote on like every 3 years you get a vote. Like you rotate it that way. You're not talking about 900 people voting or something like that.
And I'm telling you, there's some that might.
It gets a little compact. I don't know what the solution is. By the way,
having said that, I'd be glad to be number 999 to vote on the Heisman Trophy. Just saying.
I would like to give a little bit of college football trivia when it comes to 2 of the 3 Hall of Famers. Adrian Beltre obviously has no college football Hall of Fame connections because he was signed out of the Dominican Republic when he was 16 years old. But Todd Helton was the starting quarterback where before he was run off to Major League Baseball. By who?
Run off at Tennessee? Was it
run off by a legend?
Fulmer?
Peyton Manning.
Oh, Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning came in. Todd Helton got hurt.
Best thing that happened to him.
Yeah, Todd Helton got hurt. Peyton Manning came in as a starter, and Todd Helton goes, well, I'm just going to go make hundreds of millions of dollars as one of the best first basemen ever. Joe Mauer was the first pick in the draft when he came out. And he was committed to go to school where to play quarterback?
Florida State.
He was, and he did not. And it's broken my heart ever since then. But good, he made the right choice.
Remember Carl Crawford? Was he the one that was going to play quarterback at Nebraska? Was it Carl Crawford that was committed to Nebraska?
Yeah.
That was one of those
droughts. I think Frank Solich even said, like, had we had Carl Crawford, we wouldn't have.
No.
Carl Crawford might have one of the most interesting lives out there because the last I checked, he was Megan Thee Stallion's like manager and was no longer. She had like blown up and was now moving on. But you go from like top prospect to the point you're getting like Nebraska glory years offers to play quarterback, like when they're at their very best, and you decide, no, I'll turn down the 90s dynasty that is Nebraska to go play baseball, which turns into a pro baseball career, which then turns into being a hip-hop like manager in your later years down in the Houston area. That just seems like a very interesting life that he's led, a very talented and multifaceted individual. But there's only a 3-man class. Billy Wagner, that means that, as Bob Nightingale put, he'll join 2 of next year's top names, as it will be, I believe, his 9th ballot that he will be going on to next year. But next year, the headliner, Ichiro Suzuki.
Oh, he's in.
And CC Sabathia, also a member of next year's class, potentially as part of the voting. So he'll be joining the fray as well. But Ichiro will be your headliner for sure.
All right, when we come back, these next 30, 40 minutes will be fun, along with what we hope the first 2.5 hours. Congratulations to Adrian Beltre, just such a phenomenal player, an incredible human being, along with Mauer and Helton, too. John McClain on the NFL playoffs and also what Houston has to do in the offseason. Seems like they're set for a nice run. Also, Jared Anderson and Top 5 with Paul. This is 365 Sports. Just sent a note to Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne at Don Chimidor and Coffee Beans. They're in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and also Valley Mills in Waco. A 48-foot walk-in humidor. They contact me every year when we go to a special event, whether it's a Super Bowl or if it's a bowl game, or even back when we used to be able to go cover the NFL draft, and they say, hey, we want to give you a box of cigars of the finest cigar they want or have available for us to promote, and lay it at our table. We do that. And we've had players, NFL players, that have dropped by and gotten cigars as we have done our show from wherever it is, in this year, of course, in Las Vegas. So I'll go by there in the next week or two to pick up a box of Rocky Patel or Ashton or Macanudo, Padron, Cohiba, the best cigars inside their walk-in humidor. And the CBD product, Vita Dreams, help you fall asleep more relaxed and not toss and turn. And the THC product, they have 2 different types now of THC product for those of you who have chronic pain, whether it's in your hips or your back or your wherever it might be. Don Chimidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive, Valley Mills in Waco.
Are you ready to elevate your Waco experience to a whole new level? Look no further than the Baylor Club, where you can indulge in one-of-a-kind luxury and unwind in our exclusive lounge area. Located in the heart of McLean Stadium, this elite club offers 5-star member atmosphere for all your work and play needs. With a master culinary team and outstanding hospitality, we take pampering to a whole new level. Weddings, milestones, businesses, and birthdays. A stadium roaring with Bear spirit featuring stunning city skyline views. The Baylor Club truly has it all. The Baylor Club is the destination for Baylor basketball pregame meals, beverages with this special membership offer. If you mention Sikkim 365 or 365 Sports Radio, just ask for John or Devin for details. For interest in membership or your next private event, call 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree for more information on menus, calendars, upcoming special events. Say yes to the Baylor Club today. 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, Pro Football Hall of Famer, and also a part of the Hall of Fame committee that they will announce the latest. In fact, we just mentioned baseball with Beltray, Helton, and also Joe Mauer. John, into that way, you guys have a committee. Everyone gets up, or whoever, they're attached to a name, they make a speech, whether it's John Elway sit down or whatever it might be, and then you guys chew on it, you vote on it, you get to a certain level, and it whittles down. Do you think Major League Baseball would be better off if they did it that way?
Well, when I see how Billy Wagner, one of the greatest lefties in baseball history, got left off for 3 guys, Adrian Beltre was locked, but Todd Helton and Joe Mauer, and not Billy Wagner, I'd say yes, but it's never going to change. They have over 400 members, and they send in their ballot. Like Derek Jeter. One person didn't vote for him. And I'm thinking, I'd like to know who that was. You know, who would leave off Derek Jeter? Because sometimes you lose your credibility. And yes, ours is a year-round process where we email, we text, we DM about players. And by the time we get to our meeting and start reducing the class, we got a pretty good idea where everybody feels strongly about the process. Maybe not the outcome, but certainly the process.
Does it ever get really heated?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. When I first got on the Pro Football Hall of Fame Select Committee 30 years ago, there was a lot of guys that were older, my age now, and they were on it, and they used to, boy, it was heated. And they would go at it like crazy, and it was entertaining to watch them. Now we're much more civilized. We do have debate, but not like it used to be back then when some guys made it personal.
John, Baltimore 34, the Texans 10. The season comes to a close for D'Amico Ryans, C.J. Stroud, and company. What's kind of the last, I guess, takeaway from this Texans season as they now start to look ahead to what they can build off of from this year?
Well, Craig, it was 10-10 at halftime. They, Baltimore's best team in the NFL this season. Baltimore hammered the 49ers in Santa Clara. And they led the Texans 7-6 at halftime of the first game of the season, won 25-9. And then they lost. This one was tied at the half. And Peter King this week had a great note. C.J. Stroud is 0-4 against the Harbaughs, 0-2 against Jim at Ohio State, and 0-2 against John this season. And they'll get the Ravens here next season. They've never beaten Baltimore. They're 0-8. And but it'll be fun to have a game again. Texans have a lot of needs, starting with their mediocre running game. They've got 35 guys whose contracts are expiring. They have to decide which ones they want to bring back, how much money they'll offer them. They've got the fourth most cap room. General Manager Nick Caserio has just done a great job rebuilding this team. He came in January of 20, tore it down to the foundation and started over, hired D'Amico Ryans, drafted C.J. Stroud, traded up with Arizona to get the third overall pick to draft defensive end Will Anderson Jr. Stroud and Anderson were announced today as Rookies of the Year, offense and defense by Pro Football Writers of America. That's not the official Rookie of the Year. That'll be announced. Those will be announced, I think, on the NFL Honors Show 3 days before the Super Bowl. But things are definitely looking up.
John, Lamar Jackson, in the offseason, there was the thought that he and Baltimore were headed in opposite directions. He was out there for anybody to sign and make a deal for. And I know they'd have to give up some draft picks, but it was there. And, he eventually, gets back with the Ravens and they bury the hatchet and got the contract done. But how many teams that could have had him, I'm thinking one in particular like Atlanta, are probably kicking themselves right now that they did not maybe go get Lamar Jackson before what has now been his best season?
Well, I don't think they are, because he would have cost you. He wanted a Deshaun Watson contract, fully guaranteed, of more than $230 million, and you would have had to give up 2 number 1 picks, so he wouldn't have had Bijan Robinson. And the Ravens could have matched it if they wanted to. And that's why no team seriously pursued him, is because his demands were astronomical. And remember, the last 2 seasons, he missed 7 and 6 games down the stretch. So you had to be worried about him staying healthy. So I don't blame any team not pursuing him. And he didn't get that kind of guaranteed money either from the Ravens. And they were a good team for him. They brought in a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. They're number 1 in the league in rushing. He was their leading rusher. He ran for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Texans, 2 touchdown passes. He's now 2-3 in the playoffs. And I tell you an interesting stat. Baltimore has not hosted an AFC championship game since 1971, when I was a senior at Richfield High School.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's some amazing history, John, and some other history this past weekend. The Lions advancing to the NFC Championship game, first time in nearly 30 years. What a story Dan Campbell and that team have been. Jared Goff has got to be feeling pretty good. Just where does this kind of rank on some more recent, just feel-good stories from the NFL ranks?
Not many are better, considering the Lions won one playoff game since 1957 when I was 5. And I tell you this, I've been tweeting and using on my talk shows around the country about Dan Campbell, born in Clifton, pointing out where Clifton is in relation to Waco, grew up in Glen Rose. And you think about how small Glen Rose was back then. I don't know what class it is now, maybe 3A.
It's a 4A school. 4A school.
now.
Yep.
And then to go to College Station, to A&M, and now end up with a chance to go to the Super Bowl is amazing. You know, I think, who doesn't like Dan Campbell? And you may not like the Lions if you're a division rival, but what a story. The longest suffering fans in pro football, and with a head coach who likes to bite kneecaps. It's just an unbelievable story. Now, I don't think they're going to win, but they got 2,000-yard runners. They have balance. They're going to lose at least one coordinator. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, another Aggie, is interviewing for head coaching jobs. But it is an amazing success story. And if they beat the 49ers, my God, we're going to get tired of hearing about kneecaps during the Super Bowl week.
I said this earlier, John. The Taylor Swift, Craig mentioned the media, the ratings of 50 million plus against the Bills. How much of that do you think is I thought it was Jason Kelce. Everyone wanted to see him, who was funny. But how much do you feel like might be the bump when it comes to that number with her?
I think obviously she's got fans all over the world. She's very popular. A lot of them are young women, and they're tuning in for a chance to get glimpses of her, like Jason Kelce taking his shirt off, climbing out of the suite, going down, picking up a young girl who was holding up a Taylor Swift sign and carrying her back to the open suite so she could meet Taylor. I think the whole thing about the Kelce's and Taylor Swift is great. A lot of these old sports writers, and I'm an old sports writer, they're curmudgeons. They're tired of seeing her. She didn't put the camera on herself, and NFL's smart. They're trying to reach young fans. You know, they better hope she doesn't ditch him anytime soon.
John, the Super Bowl's around the corner in Vegas. Do you plan on going?
No, I never want to go to a Super Bowl again. I don't travel, and the only thing I want to go to is the Combine and the league meetings in March. I have no interest in covering like my 44th Super Bowl.
John, is it just amazing to you, though, that the NFL is hosting a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, of all places?
Yeah, I remember 4 years ago when Tony Romo couldn't even host a charity event there. And they're going to make $100 billion projected over 10 years from gambling all over the world. That's why the NFL is going all over the world, not because they love the sellout crowds or because they're selling memorabilia. They're going all over the world because of gambling.
Yeah, John, they wouldn't let him have that event in Dallas, which is eventually was just like half of a fantasy football thing and half of a baseball card show. I went. It was like there was the least. It was the least gambling-ish thing I've ever seen in my life.
The hypocrisy was preposterous.
John, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
John, does Jim Harbaugh have a job in the NFL before the week's over?
Looks like he's going to go to the Chargers so he can coach Justin Herbert. Guys, thank you very much. And sick 'em.
Sick 'em. John McClain, Hall of Fame, Sports Radio 610 in Houston with us on 365 Sports. When we come back, they'll stay. We'll keep it here. Okay, we'll keep it here. He's talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, how the football. There were some angry type confrontations in the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's some guys that, even though they're not supposed to, bring into somebody's personal life or what they were off the field. We know in baseball that's happened. Rick Gosselin, Shireen Williams, that have been a part of that. There's some stories that not just because of the Cowboys, but just other stories that it can get heated. And there's also, and I've learned this with the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, there is some, not political, but there are some, I don't know if the word is cliques, that kind of set things up even before they walk through that door, which is smart as they try to get, bring over a Democrat or a Republican. I'll vote for your guy if you vote for my guy. And everybody that's up for it is usually a spectacular player.
Yeah, I think that, again, like John said, it's never going to change, but or it's going to take a lot of people saying, like, this is ridiculous. But, and look, unless you're like an actual, like fascist, someone who's like done horrible things, I don't think that because you have some kind of weird views, you might be an odd duck, you should be kept out. Like Kurt Schilling is kind of an odd guy, he gets kind of out over his skis, but he had a Hall of Fame career, but there's people who don't like him because of that. So they're like, I'm not going to vote for him. And like, well, you're not voting for him for mayor. You're voting for him because he was a good baseball player. Like, that's the thing. Like, look, Lawrence Taylor got in and
without even blinking.
And look, he did a lot of stuff. And so, but he's in because he was a great football player. And so like, I do think that there needs to be a little bit of like the snobbery that goes along with being a baseball writer that needs to get weeded out, because it gives these guys, and it's the only power they really have, is like, all right, well, if you're a dick to me while I'm trying to interview you, well, when you come up for the Hall of Fame, I'm not going to vote for you.
It's revenge of the nerds, man.
Yeah.
Is what it is, honestly. I mean, I think in some cases that's what it is. It's the guys who now have an opportunity to turn the tables and get their jab in because a guy was a D-head to them when they were in the Chicago clubhouse back in '99 or whatever. Like, now I'm going to not vote for this guy. And it should not be based on your personal feelings, whatever that is. It should be based on their careers, simple, black and white, just like that. But that's not how it goes, especially not with the baseball votes.
Baylor has a new tight ends coach. Jared Anderson joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Jared, great to hear from you. You and I have known each other a long, long time. You were a part of Tyler Junior College, and then, of course, I leaned on you a couple of times when you were at TCU during those great teams back at the Rose Bowl and more, in trying to get your perspective on what Baylor was at that time as they were trying to, find some traction. Did you ever think there would be a time you would actually be coaching at Baylor?
I think wearing green, I've got a lot of former players that have already called me from East Texas and areas that I've recruited and called me a traitor already. But I said, you know what? I said, you just got to be able to come down a little further south. And I said, you'll see the traitor when it comes to game day. But no, they're all good. All my kids that played for me, I said, they're all appreciative of it.
You brought up an area that you know a lot about. I don't know what region you'll get. I'm sure that's something that has already been discussed. But you found diamonds in the rough, as I called them. Really good football players that sometimes people didn't know too much about. And then they ended up being stars at TCU and elsewhere. What was that like? And is that something that was kind of your, not legacy, but something that you're more proud of?
I mean, it's probably a lot of times that you probably had some kids that were first generation college kids and things like that, and seeing them walk across the stage and the success they had on the football field and some of the things that they're able to give back, and from Kilgore to Longview, I mean, some of the areas of East Texas, and even, and Tyler from that standpoint, I said, it's one of those things that you're proud of as a coach, but also as a person, that you see them successful in life besides just football.
Coach, with the new offense with Jake Spavital, who we had on the show yesterday, coming in, and the tight end position's responsibilities will morph. I don't want to say change. They'll morph into something different. What do you expect to see? What is different that you can tell fans that they can see out of that position from the last zone read offense or the wide zone offense to this one?
Well, we kind of had our first kind of meetings today and just talking about it, and I said, you're going to have to be physical, and you're also going to have to play fast. You're also going to have to be able to do things with the football. I said, you were asked to do things with the football, but I said, you're going to have some accountability on both ends, from the throwing game and the running game. And it's always not going to be outside zone. And there's going to be some different avenues that you'll have to do.
Coach, Jake told us that you guys, or at least in his case, had been on the road and met the prospects more than he'd actually met the guys on the team and spent time around them. What was that like to just be able to be around the guys and start the getting to know process and the importance of all that?
Oh, it's good. I'm glad they're all wearing their names with their shirts on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know my tight end room, but I said everybody else, I said, guys from different parts that you'd recruited before at the other place. And I said, it's funny. I said, they need to wear this every day for the next few weeks while we're on the road.
Yeah, like back in the days of high school when they had the whatever across your front of your helmet, your name, when you had to learn the player. Jarrett, you're in the tight ends room. They've lost some tight ends. They've gained some tight ends too. What is your role compared to what that offense is with that specific position?
You know what? I told them, I said, you know what? I wasn't part of the other couple of kids that kind of left here. So I said, I can't say anything about it. I said, I can only look at film and kind of go from there. And I told them, I said, we're moving forward with it. I said, the guys that we have in here are good enough. I said, we're either winning with you or because of you, or we're winning with you. And I said, I want to win because of you. And I said, I have an expectation for you. And I said, it's one of those things that I'm going to demand perfection. So when you get on game day, that you get to go play fast and you get to have a great time.
What are your impressions of your early going with Dave Aranda? And he is, he's just such a unique dude, especially when it comes to the coaching world. I don't know if there's a fair comparison to him out there as far as the way he approaches things.
Yes. I coached against him and only had to do a handshake, and finally get an interview with him. I can appreciate some of the things and some of the values he's instilled in the program. And that's, and he demands excellence on the football field and off the football field. And that's, there's a lot of guys that preach it, but sometimes don't follow through on it.
How new is this staff and the getting to know process for you with the staff members? Or is there some previous connections that you can kind of go on into already, guys that you knew from years prior, or is this kind of all brand new to you in some ways as well?
Well, I've known Spav for a while, and then I've known Cap. It was funny because he came down, I think, during the Rose Bowl years. They were at Southern Miss. He was with Fedora, kind of going to North Carolina, and kind of did some ball clinic during that time, and Baker, and having got to know the receiver, and then knowing running back and getting to know those guys. But the other two guys I don't know previously.
Jarrett, with your time at UTSA, Jeff Traylor, we've known him, and what he's done, and now with your time at TCU and how long you were on the Gary Patterson staff too. You've been around, but you were there longer at TCU. You still have kind of a blend, a chemistry of what you've learned from various people? Yes.
And I always tell coaches, and I tell young coaches, I said, you can't ever lose the ability to learn. And I said, it doesn't matter if you're learning from a young coach or an older coach. And I said, once you lose that ability, I said, you shouldn't be coaching anymore. And I said, it was good to see different things that Jeff incorporated that I took from and learned from. And there's some good traits, and there's always things that you can learn from different coaches on the staff, whether they're young or old. And you build friendships as you're in that room together. So that's it, because you have to go through the fight day in and day out when you're going to play that game, whether they're good battles or bad battles from that day.
Jarrett, you went to Lee, right?
Yes, I went to Lee.
That's where Craig went. That's his alma mater. And now, of course, they got a new name. And then you were a part of it for a little bit with Tyler Junior College. Did that help you with the relationships you built once you started recruiting that area?
I think it did. I think it helps that you have familiarity with the parents and stuff back there. As you get older, you even know the parents. And now I've got more. What's even crazier is now I've got former players with me at TCU that are you're recruiting their kids or their nephews from that standpoint, and you know people that know you, and they know what you're about.
I'm sorry. My fault.
You're fine. They know that you're that you have substance, and that when you come back home that your family's there too, that you mean what you say and you say what you mean.
You're about to be inside McLean Stadium, where you've had some exhilarating wins, and you've had a couple of, especially one in particular, loss that probably still eats at you to this day because it was a classic. Have you thought much about that?
You know what? I haven't thought. I think that when we had a recruiting weekend and they said, you need to go to this dressing room, and that's the way to go. And I'm like, guys, I've only been in one dressing room before. I can't tell you where anything else is in this place. All I've seen is one locker room and one tunnel to walk out of. I haven't walked out of any other place.
We have Phil Bennett, who's on our show like every Monday, and Phil, the storytelling, the memories, and all that he's joined us many, many times, and he told me that I needed to bring up with you the not fight like fist fight, but the recruiting battle for Shock Linwood and how Baylor ended up with him, of course, and had a great career. But what were those battles like? Because Baylor and TCU probably recruited that area better than anybody.
Well, I always told him he had a little cheat sheet with his brother.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He had Jerry on his side. Because Shock at one time was committed to it, but I mean, it was one of those things that Coach Patterson said, "Well, I don't know why we're even recruiting with the brother on the other side." He goes, "Blood's thicker than water."
Yeah. And it was. When you got the call from Coach Aranda, what did it mean to you to get back into the Big 12, but also just to have this opportunity?
Oh, I was excited. I think my son was my 15-year-old was excited even more. Even though he'd grown up at TCU, I think it's wearing on him a little bit to get back into the Big 12. And I said, you know what, it gets me closer to home and closer to my family of where my roots are. And you know what, I enjoyed I said we got a few new teams in the conference, but I said it's great to get to go coach against these guys again from the Oklahoma States and Arizona, knowing guys on Arizona State and Arizona and going against Colorado and some of the new teams in the conference.
How much Paul brought up the Spavital connection now with that, and of course the game that's so wide open. Baylor had gotten away from that since 2016. Is that going to be kind of like teaching another language, or is that really not that big of a deal?
You know what? Kids probably learn the language a lot easier than coaches do sometimes because they have to adjust from what their high school system was to college. From that standpoint, it's probably sometimes the tempo and your demands, and they have to adjust probably to coach speak and the verbiage a little bit, but just adjusting to the different personalities. And we got to adjust to different personalities with the kids too.
Do you like the transfer portal as something that helps fill something up, or it can create a vacuum in a position, whatever position you might coach?
You know what? It's gotten to the point that you live with it and you deal with it. You kind of work at both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes you can, I was at a place last year where, we gained some good kids out of it, but also they lost a kid that went to Texas and lost a kid that went to Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those we gained. But what's amazing, that kid came from Sam Houston. So, it wasn't like that. It was almost robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes, like Craig brought this up, and we've discussed this. A lot of players, we even mentioned somebody today that committed to another school in the Big 12. It's no longer they're from like Estacado High School in Lubbock. They could be from UCLA, Arizona, and then whoever else they commit to.
That's exactly what I told somebody. I said, it's probably the only sport right now that you could be a transfer 3 times in one season.
Yep.
Play somewhere in the fall. I said, I'm tired of that. Then I could go to Jeff Traylor in the spring. And I don't like that, then I can transfer again somewhere else and for the next year.
Yeah, Coach, I was saying it's going to make Monday Night Football introductions a lot more confusing. The guys are reeling off like 3 names for schools that they went to,
You know what? That'll be interesting when you see that first guy that gets on there that lists 6 different schools that he went to.
That
finally makes that tell. If he went from junior, it goes high school, junior college, and then you go through the mix if he had to go through all that situation.
All right, you mentioned, and so did Coach Spavital yesterday, about meeting the kids and actually having that hands-on type chance to get to know them, et cetera. And then next thing you know, and Coach Aranda brought this up. He was in our studio back, I think it was in December, where he said, we're going to hit football like even quicker, like get into the meat of football. There's offseason that's been going on. How long does this take for the getting to know each other? Not just the names, but getting to know each other. Is this going to be a process up until spring drills?
I think it will be a process till spring drills, until you'll get to know them, but until you get the pads on where it gets to be where it's kind of the crunch time when situations happen or you make a mistake. And I tell them, I said, there's mistakes are going to happen, but I said, the mistakes that have to happen can't be a dumb mistake or a mental mistake that you've had time to prepare for.
Jared, can you discuss the Ole Miss tight end who transferred in? Is he on campus?
Yes.
Michael Trigg, did you tell us a little bit about what you see in him?
Today was his first day, and he's still learning. So it was kind of he's got to learn that I demand probably more than probably what other people have told him. I think everybody's told him. I mean, and he's a very talented young man, but as I said before, I said either you have to take that talent to another level. I said, everybody's told you how great you were, but now it's time to actually play great on the field as a college football player.
Man, I love that. I love that. Jared, thanks. It's great to hear from you again. It was always cool to lean on you and pick your brain when it came to recruiting, also your time at TCU and now at UTSA and now Baylor. Thanks for your time. Great to have you on the staff here.
I appreciate it.
Jared Anderson, Baylor tight ends coach, went to Lee, went to Tyler, and then, of course, a part of TCU for many, many years. A great recruiter, really, really good when it comes to what he could do to find the talent that helped feed that TCU roster for a long, long time. When we, of course, continue, Paul's Top 5 just around the corner, and this is 365 Sports.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 programs that need a 2024 reboot. Now, none of these coaches are on the hot seat because that's another top 5. This is programs that, just maybe, need a nice shower and a shave, some new clothes, something to refresh them because they had struggles that were maybe outside their character, their normal seasons in the past. Number 5, UNC. They've had 2 good seasons in a row, but the way that this one ended was really not great, especially when you've got Drake May. They fought all year to get Tez Walker. They got him. They won a couple games, and then they just hit the wall and lost on the way out. Mac Brown's got to start capitalizing on the talent that he's getting in. I don't think he's lost a step or anything, but he does have to. They've got to kind of start delivering on this. Drake May's walking out the door. You're replacing him, at least in the short term, with Max Johnson, who is no Drake May. And so now you have to you need a reboot. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe Mac missed his window that he had here at North Carolina with Sam Howell and Drake May back to back.
Possibly. I don't. Yeah, maybe reboot. I just think of it wrong because it's like I get the way you're using it.
Control-Alt-Delete. Just
they're kind of hovering in that 8-9 win range. And how do you get over that hump if you're Mac Brown after these past couple of years? Because you're right, you're not going to have a better quarterback in the next go around. You're also in the midst of all of this uncertainty. Now, Mac's at the age where he can just call it quits at any time and nobody will blame him otherwise. Yeah. So I don't know how much longer he plans on coaching, but they got to find a way to jump up and grab the ACC by the horn somehow or another. So long as the ACC's still around for however long it's still around. Yeah. And then if you don't do that, if things do change, you're not going to easier waters. You're going to even tougher waters. So the time is now to go jump up and try to be the brand that kind of runs the ACC if you're North Carolina. But how you go about doing that, other than what you've already done, that's what he has to figure out this offseason. But they've had some respectable years, but you're right, they haven't had that blow-away 10-win-plus type of a year that you'd expect them to have given the likes of the Drake Mays that have walked through those doors.
Look, also Sam Howell was there. Like, that's back-to-back NFL quarterbacks, and you win the conference with either of them. Number 4, LSU. This one is not as big of a reboot, but they certainly need it on defense. They're going to have new coordinators on each side of the ball. The offense is probably not going to change that much because they're promoting within, but bring in, is it Brian Baker that's coming in from Missouri? He will – I know job one for Brian Baker is to not do whatever they were doing with Harold Perkins. Like, that was a bad idea.
Who?
Yeah.
No, seriously. Like, he just, disappeared.
Oh, bad, Smokey.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would, like, in my job interview, like, and sometimes, like, telling somebody, a coach, like, here's what you did wrong, and that's why you're hiring me. If you find the right way to do that, the first thing I would have said is, like, listen, Coach Kelly, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take number 4, and I'm going to move him into the backfield where he wants to feast. Like, you have got a frigging wild animal here, and you put him in a cage.
Yeah.
Like, you need to let this dude run. And that's what I think that they're going to do. But I do think that, like, Brian Kelly's won a lot of games. He's won a lot of games. But if he really wants to, get his footing in the SEC, he needs to let the dogs hunt.
I would have put him as a preseason nominee, or at least in the poll or the odds of being a Heisman Trophy. Not going to win it, because that position you have to be just like extra special, but at least in the conversation before the year began. And when I voted for All-American, not one time did I even think about Perkins. Yeah. Not one time.
No, I mean, he was completely mismanaged.
Disappeared.
He was completely mismanaged so many times.
Yeah. Matt House is going to have to live that for a very long time. Number 3, TCU. I mean, look, Sonny Dykes is in no trouble of being in the hot seat. They're just 2 years removed from the greatest season possibly in the history of TCU, at least in the modern era for sure. But they need to, everything that they tried did not work last year, and they need to, obviously new defensive coordinator changes that. Another year with Kendall Briles probably does that. Josh Hoover, appears to be the guy at quarterback. We'll see how that works out for them. But yeah, this is a team that, they certainly need to kind of, grab the cloth and shake the dust out, because it didn't work out for them.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, too, because we mentioned some of the changes that LSU's already made. Mac and North Carolina did move on from Gene Chizik. I mean, that was the big step that they've taken so far this offseason. So maybe that's the key, is if you had some of the offense and now you got to get the defense right. Defense has certainly been problematic for them. So I just wanted to wrap around back to that. But, with TCU, I mean, I don't know how much you are who you are, and I think their identity is pretty clear, although it got a little confusing last year because of the new offense. And, how much is Sonny, how much is Kendall, why is it like this compared to the way it was the year prior? And so last year was just a weird year, and they were one of those teams that, and this is kind of what I talk about with Texas, although Texas, I think, is dealing with a higher level of talent overall to start with, and then certainly to backfill with. But TCU lost a lot of really good players off of that national championship run, like the Thorpe Award winner,
both running backs,
Heisman finalist quarterback, and first-round NFL draft pick receiver,
Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, I mean, so like they lost the greatest class like in TCU history, basically on paper. And so they went and got JoJo Earl and, all these different guys, and they plucked, Brockermeyer from Alabama as well. And looked on paper to be pretty good, but you just can't replace all that experience and that, veteran leadership and all of those things. I don't give a damn what a guy's star rating was when he was 18 years old. So I think that was their biggest bugaboo last year. This year will tell us a lot about how much is Kendall. Yeah. And what they're trying to do offensively versus just the changeover last year. You also got changes on defense now as well. So, that was a bad look last year. I mean, it's one thing to fall off a little bit. It's another thing to not even make a bowl game. And that's not where they should have been. I don't care how much talent they lost in this era. TCU shouldn't be missing a bowl game for any reason other than, like, your best player got hurt. Now, their quarterback got hurt, but he wasn't even the guy by the end. He's not even there. So Chandler Morris, no more dealing with him. And I guess it is Josh Hoover's team moving forward. He got some valuable experience. But, they're in an interesting spot because I don't know quite what to make of them. I was all in on them last year because I just felt like the portal, you can go and replace guys, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a big question mark this season.
Number 2, Clemson. They closed very strong. Won the last 5, I guess. Had some big wins. After that Miami game, like stuff started to look like it was falling apart. They, Dabo's out throwing the quarterback under the bus in the press conference and, letting his emotions get the better of him. But, I mean, unless he got hit in the head with a brick and, like, is having memory loss, like, he didn't forget how to do this. Now, he may have to adapt more, and they haven't really adapted that much. But this is a team that, like, he does need to give himself a fresh perspective. Now, he closed, again, really strong, but – are the other teams in the ACC, Florida State caught up and passed you last year. Can they do that again? Is Miami coming? NC State is really good. I mean, like, they're really good and well coached. They got Grayson McCall. That's a game you can drop. You got, I don't think they're scared of any of the teams coming in right now, but this Duke, I don't think is going to miss much of a beat with Manny Diaz. You guys know how I feel about it. They got Malik Murphy. That's the highest rated quarterback they've ever had come in there. So they've got potential. And so it's not the good old days of the ACC for Clemson anymore. So he's got to be careful where he decides to drive this, but he's still got a tremendous advantage being at a premier program.
What could have been a completely like a train wreck was 9-4. Now at Clemson, that is not the standard because of the last 6 to 7, 8 years, but 9-4 and needs a shower. But they finished strong, and maybe they caught something there by winning their last 5 games. But they were not crisp, efficient. They were not razor sharp good.
No, I mean, they definitely need to improve this season and get back to that kind of double-digit standard. But to y'all's point, I mean, the fact that they had such a down year and still won 9 games, I think most every school in America, save for about 10 of them, maybe 15, would all trade for that in a second. But that is the high bar that you set for yourself. Nobody else set that for you. Dabo set that for himself with the success that they had over the years. And so, yeah, they want to be back. The question is, can Clemson be what they were a few years ago in this different era? Because it's a different era from when they were winning those titles with the NIL and transfer portal additions. So we know his hesitancy to fully embrace that or embrace it in some cases at all. Can you sustain not only your job, period, in college football, can you sustain the job like that one, doing it that type of way and doing it your own way? We're finding out, and we're going to find out more come next season. But, yeah, I like the way that they finished, and I think that if 9's your down year, then you're still feeling pretty good about things. And yet at the same time, they kind of are sort of moving to the back of your mind when you immediately start reeling off championship contenders, whereas Clemson would have been one of the first 4 teams you probably would have mentioned for about 3-4 years straight there.
Yep.
You don't mention them in the top 5 any longer. I don't even think of them. I'd get into maybe the top 10 before I'd finally, Clemson at like 9 or something. But, that's a step back. So, I think the Alabama job has come and gone. Not sure that ever got even serious with Dabo interest-wise at all. I know Alabama fans, plenty of them will say no, they've never had any interest, but that threat's nowhere even in the picture. So, I mean, it's all about him and Clemson and the job he can get done and get back to the promised land. We'll see, but they do need to hit a little bit of a reset.
They've not lost a lot of transfers. With one of the ones they've lost a couple that are big. Bo Collins is Notre Dame, Andrew McCuba's at Texas, and that's a huge one. They've lost, and they lost a guy to Mizzou as well. So they're losing guys like that to other good programs, and they're not putting them back in. That's the math that I think that whatever reason that Dabo isn't seeing, right? Like, look, if Texas is going to take one of your, look, you got to go Sean Connery in the Untouchables. They put one of ours in the hospital. We put one of theirs in the morgue.
Yep.
Like, that's how you have to do it. Number 1, USC. Look, Lincoln Riley didn't come out there, and they're not giving all the money in NIL and trying to do all the things that they're doing for him to go 7-5. Now, look, they have the entire defensive rebuild. The whole staff is different. They've gone big there. We'll see how that works out for them. But I don't even need to expound on this. When you have Caleb Williams and are not even in the conversation for the conference title with a month left to go in the season, that's a failed season.
Yeah, that thing went south pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get a quarterback. I don't care who is next. That's going to be of his stature, of his talent, of his dynamics, and a guy that you know well because you recruited him to Oklahoma. They've got to turn that around. He's not there to go 7-5 or even 9-3.
Yeah, I mean, this was pretty obvious. They didn't hire him to do just what you said. The fact that Caleb Williams didn't even make it back to New York. I mean, it's one thing to not win the Heisman a second year in a row. It's another thing to not even be a finalist for it the year after you won it. That's how much of a disappointment that was. But, yeah, I mean, this one's pretty clear-cut, and I don't think he's on the hot seat. But certainly there's some expectations, man, and now you're moving into the Big Ten. That's just another wild card in the whole thing, and however that ends up working out for you long term. But, yeah, Lincoln's got to win, and that's why he's there in Los Angeles. So interested to see what they do post-Caleb Williams era because it's the first time in 3 years we're going to see him without Caleb Williams as his quarterback. So that's going to be interesting whether it's Miller Moss or somebody else.
Oh, they got the transfer from
UNLV.
UNLV
Oh,
at quarterback. This
Maivia.
might help, too. With him running the show. All right, Paul, thank you very much. All those programs that are trying to get a new new shampoo and a shower, a hot shower, not a cold one, to try to get themselves
a haircut. Get themselves a nice suit. Be respectable.
The
Meet
top
a nice
five
girl. Settle down.
The top 5 sponsored by TexasBeefHouse.com. Don't forget January 30th. That's next Tuesday. You can bid in person or online. All of their Wagyu steaks are now offered in the auctions, and they've had incredible success. I spoke with Aaron Duvall by text, in fact, last night. Excited about it. Next Tuesday, go to TexasBeefHouse.com for more information on the bid sheet and all of the details and specifics. All right, for Garrett Ross, also thanks to Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter. Tonight at 10:30 on 365 Sports Tonight on the local CW. If you don't mind, hit the like button. And also subscribe if you haven't, or tell somebody else to watch us and have them do that. We appreciate it. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Thank you as always. Triple option tomorrow at 1. We're back at 3. And this is 365 Sports.